Federa. You're listening to Bitilo with Mfali Federa.
Assalamu alaikum badi lamelalu ngali kontong ngali bismillah na Bitilo kibaro tijang alnal badi malum falli federa ngali kontong bi me karotil worola menyi sango men kono men benta arabalungo fe alnal badi malum falli federa badi ngolu kondal takka ke nyamen drom nse kadabato jibe ke kunto kibaro langa men soto jam badi namono woke nsa fale dron ko nga luntang bunyari mbaso jang bi fanan Bitilo jam nim membe kacha sotola a keta moti me alon ko a to mu Sanna Camara ladi sana keta moti me alon ko kiba tala kiba janjanna kebale mati ay sanji jama ke kiba tanin kiba janjan wala Gambia banko kan men siata wara sutiata sanji muwanti fan dati dula janne kiba janjan bundal to ay simfa jamal fananta do ko kono ay ku jamal fananta ki do ko kono adabo kono wole mo arrestrolti anim fanan do ko fonga na fam folla ban wala anata bori ay Gambia banko bula a dunta wulala mbe dinkaralo kono mba jibe bari sana nata ke modi me alon ko batani ko le alu be kola ay menu be taki ala do ko kono ala kibata kiba janjango do ko kono anata ke modi fana me alon ko nyala ban wala amurta nan Gambia banko kan anata labang do ko ke State House sana kida modi malon ko nala faka wole kacha bi abebe men kono wole mu nyinjuro nin kirimoti membe ke kan nyinkaring e ka fame ko World Press Freedom Month akeda karti malon ko duniya ya kerekere kibatal nin kiba jinjennal ye ke ijura ke la doko fele ke tentu ila katakol kam men alon ko be wolel ke kan andum Gambia banko kam kiba talal ni kiba jinjennalu molle me alon koy be loring lodula bambandi mbaleto bankudo koro wala na lafta nin Sanna Camara se kacha soto kacha me alon ko wole be dending ala balu wala simfal menta o doko kono sana be kafulam nyaato do manding bari mbe men kela kondalta ka ke nyamen na Bitilo to jam mbe katabato jibe kela kunto kibaro la bari kibaro do fana nyaato do manding keba Camara be kafulamma keba journalist keba Camara akera moti me alon ko fanan ko manuku moma Bitilo la special chief national correspondent le mati nabina kachala nyato do mandin fanan ka jibe ke nyin Omar Baji la kola mandinarin sate kono Omar keta moti me alon ko wole fata nun police lu bulu wari sota nun komando ato mandinarin je mbari ngol bari ko ngafu nyamen kadaba ke nga jibe ke kunto kibaro la nga menu soto jam mbo folo la menna wole mu kibar kuma bati nga mem muta standard newspaper bulu o keda kibati me alon ko abe dending kuma kangol la men bota Sidi Njay bulu mendu ye jabir ke ay bayro fananke kuma kangol la menu bota loya Usenu Dabo bulu kata kula men be dending APRC ning NPP la so nyokangola nal hakilo ba kan loya Usenu Dabo ngal kalamtande nanyin kiba tambilanu ko diamuta kiba jenjam bunda do e membe sabatiring Germany banko kan ay me yitandi wala muko ako ninku beje meye badiya julo kuntu fereng anin president Adama Barrow tema ako mu menti wala mu president Adama Barrow la so nyokango ala patio ling APRC la so nyokango ya jambela APRC loya Usenu Dabo e wala yitandi DW la wakacha kono aniye mensoto Sidi Njay findita ka wole kumo jabi ka bay aytandi je ko ako manke kusotorendi ako APRC la kote keno la problemo sababoti ako katunga hanata kundingo ata Sidi Njay me alon ko abenun APRC la kono ata Sidi Njay men ya jambe tata nyola Equatorial Guinea tuje amurtanam aka alo muruna ngo kola ako loya Usenu Dabo ni UDP findita nang ate kannenun wasangon la 2017 ka sasi ka dani purasina kafu UDP ma ko Sidi Njay ya itandi nyamena ko ning atra ko belari wala nyama ako NPP ning APRC la so nyokango te keno la dalilo di membe lo ya dabo ning President Barrow kuyandi la ko ayatandi nyamena ata sidi njay kilingo tentenda ka ayatandi ko ako dalil flanjango membabulu wole mu ko ako APR ako President Adama Barrow ning UDP la kuya ako sotota 2019 sango la kono anda ako APRC ning NPP wala so nyokango wo sotota 2021 la sanji fula APRC UDP ning President Barrow la kuya kola ko ayatandi nyamena ayatani je ko ako wo 2017 sangola sangome alon ko ako UDP la alfa findita tata kan wo sangola la ka sasi num pray kafu UDP ma ako sankilingo kono la hana man dangata damala bara ko hani APRC la alfa ba ko tengolu ako UDP findite bekan ako labangola nataje UDP la executive kono APRC la alfa ba ko tengolu benungi kono le su kusingate nyolu kada fo mo ko tangolu men bo nyama ko sidi njaya itandi nyamena so dalilo kambala ako ate keno la to nyati ko Adama Barrow ning APRC la so nyokango wole dabo ning Barrow kuyandi ate sidi njayo kumo nyimbay aka manke kuma sotorenti ko aytani nyamena ako so nyokango men dunda APRC ni NPP tema akabe samberi menna wole mu wakilodi anin songo anin fanan kumayame alon ko president Adama Barrow woleje ko membe banko nafala wala mu kambe wonin kankiliya soto ako kambe wonin kankiliya kannemu president Barrow ya bulo hele ning APRC ye bulo di nyoko ne be doko ke kan ko ayata ni nyamena ani sana nyu se balo kaja kilingo nyim fanan kono ay bayro ke tumiro la yemen la NPP kanko ay sila nyi registre sono membe ke kanten carte diome carte diome membe ke kam ko ibe dinngol lelu samba kanka carte wo nyini ye mol men man sanjitan ni sesi ani luntangolu sidi njaya ko manke kuma storinti ako to nyata ko nyin kono ako abebe dendim political la ako president Adama Barrow e même fo etolier aytol NPP dingolu be aka senatale aka ye beba sasi menna wolemu pour ibe koku kela isala silo kan anin tonya ako niye momos je hanata no NPP dingole muyti ibarata kula menni luwanin silo manta ako luwabe malela la ko luwaya fo nyamen nyinin kuma kotangolu sidi njaye wollel sata ka bayro ke kuma kan wala men botalo ya Ousainou Dabo bulu ko NPP ning APRC la so nyokango wala badiya julo kuntu fereng anin president Adama Barrow tema nimboro mbadi ngolu nga jibe ke kibara membe dending kula men sorta birkama sato kono kunum membe dending ke wala iko meye nyum fangola kamolu seputaring ke birkama marché o kono kibaro le aytani je ko anareke moti me alon ko police ol ya bunne labangola pour ka manankung ikatu ko fero beleke ka kunta nyato anim fanan kaje ko de ay fanyo mo sepola me alon ka bo ki kam marso do bari ko ma manankunno e ko labangola na rabun kidola police ol diam la me Modou Moussa Sisa wati adia mata na nyu sepaye to nyandi ko ye ko nyin kibaro sotele ke wonyim fango be ibulle abe bulukono le nyin tembenna bari amam men to nyandi no standard la kibata la wole mu fo police oli abun kido le fo ma bun aytani je ko mu kuleti malan ko fo asewo kiskis demanding keso soto bari aytani je ko menta rek kanyam fo mo fulalu iko nyin fantiwe wollelu sepu arani brika ma loptano do iko mo fulolu anata kewo fango iko bebe loptano to nyin temben katu be barma sangaralim balel soto ko kibarolu aytandi nyamena aytani je ko e manjutu baramola sangarola yenyi mol men sapu yemen le kan ko kibaru le tan nyamena nimboro mbadi ngolunga jibe ke kibar la membe den Omar Badji la aketa wo mandinaring kam funding ke wati police même fata police olu bulu ya mansakundale fintita ka jabirke kuma kan wala men bota mandinaring ko lu bulu membe den Omar Badji la kola nal hakilo bakan Omar la ko na reke fenti me alon ko ay banko jija demanding kabintumo menna e ko police olu wolel findita Omar ning anyom funding ke wala kam mandinaring atenata fay bulu kibarolu ato Omar Badji kilimo la kola mansakunda nata kiskisuro ke akola ya ko kiskisuro la nun magiseto le buli ka fay ko coroner's inquest o coroner's inquest report findita ka to nyandi ko Omar kunchango wala baramata andu meya barama wala mu libari jawjawoti men lata kan andi ko men ya lipa wolungola lungo men na fata wala mu police olti biri wo corona inquest report findita Omar fanan nal ala family mo mandira ko findita e diamuta akola kasasiro ke mansa kundala police simfata akodo e ko mansa kundana ta jabiro ke wole kola attorney general minister of justice findita diamuta ako corona inquest la reporto afudate tol male ako silang luaye tol kanin ko kula iba kelale iba bela la silokan anim farmanso ko ya etani nyamena e ko fangi safaro ke inspector general of police kanne pour ase falo nyin sika a di tolula isaje ise ko nyin dango bondi ko kibarulu ya etandi nyamena ambari ngolu nimboro kataba ke ngajibe ke kibara membe dinding IEC la nyin supplementary voter registration la membe ke kam banko karobela menke da nyin kati diodi be menke kam e ko IEC la doku la do be je kaf me ko ansumana sise me alon kati supervisor ti mala ma nyatun ka ke molu la membe nyin kati kati dio ke kan dulato government ko digante men felentin sare Musa Jara West kono e kati nyi ansumana atele fonyo ala IEC doku wala ay palaso nyin sey kabintumo menna ako mollel fintitate kan alo doku dulato wo sare Musa sate kono ka pipi anin ka silandiko naman kaito dile to sulata menna te bulu be mala lale tani kibaro la tani je ko atani ansumana sise ay kangola menu la ko wolel fintita na kan ka silandi ka pipindi ako NPP la molu men yalon ko lel be sato ko kibaro la tani nyamena sanda ñu be kibaro me tani wolum ko e ko je dingolu wolel fintita kan e ko sulata pour ay attestation formal dila ya tani je ko atanyin ansumana ni walita walela ya dati ka pipi woto e ko silo kan abortabe do ko ndamanta je bula tata katon akaman koy ya tani je ko wo kira kuti me alon ko ay ko atanyin ansumana fonman diama kibata la bari UDP la agento membe nunje ka fa ko almamo diba adiamata standard newspaper men sede a be banke je ko kibaru ya tani nyamena NPP du ya ko nyim bayre e ka manke ko masotorinti ko ya itani nyamenna atanyin IEC birin standard ni kachada e ko ya kibaro sotole ela dokulale mo ansumanati anda benun dokol de mento e ka bota jele bari ko birin abota tata ye mo senda notole ko kibaro ya itani nyamenna mbadi ngolu ko nga fali nyamen nga Sanna Camara soto jang sana nabina ka kachabari nga keba fanan soto jang keba Camara journalist keba janimbe sana sotla katabake dorong nyimandi na rinkuo eka bulandu akuo noma bakele itele futumondo ba dafa itele mu journalist foloti menning Omar Baji la family molu kachata corona la report la finto kola isafo molie nyin kachala bango me alonko wala sorota Omar na la family molu nin kibata la nin kibaje na tema akola ta nyamen anin bi nin kubeje Omar la family molu ko itolu lafta mansakunda wala kenyin koro nin kubeje wo munade
baraka bake Mr. Fadera ke kontrong aning Bitilo lamoy la jibe lal be kata radio to fana Vibes FM mini be lamoy kan Gambia scientific fanka fo embe Vibes FM studio la kono scientific alhamdulillah wodo jinin karo nyin kuma ra ko fo nyamen Omar Baji la dimbaya wo lokun tambila ngama lokun flasila sai ndol tara nun jele ning Omar Baji fama dinding funding ye kacha soto ka nyininka kabrin corona nyim findira sain munabe mudari tol bulu ay hakilo ba kan anin lamor lalbe alin jibe lalbe hakilo ba kan coming wol Omar Baji afama dindi min fo mole wolen coming pour etole yanfu abe koleala le kandunga police la tajreya police la mo bute mo fa mo kuria iko alaftale ay dang Omar Baji la wala tina fam kabintol ni kacha soto maninaring jannim press conference nimbe kala ya fonun tolier natra lamour la njibe la haklo baka ya fonun tolier commune pour itole yanfu abe koleala ibe lafla mansakunda e ku kanyin koto kade ko police min yalanko ye wala tumi nin atra corona nyim fintra woro sa corona ba fokan ne ko to nya police le nyimfa woto police nyanda tara blutole ande nyanda ke samba kiti yotale nin atra haklo baka na wala kacha na wala discourse no dimas tambela maneren fonninkel e kafuta Omar Baji la family kan kotenke ye journalist commandi e kibar janjan lal commandi e media commandi e ni kacha korenge abe kono Mr. Ibu John aning Omar Baji la dimbayal e sita ening journalist jama kacha soto andu lungo fanan kukilo mo safono ye wala kacha ji iko corona inquest la finto kayto nying ya moyle a fintira kibar kaytol balale bare han kabi masakunda la mo metal communicate IGP man fem foitole police moma fem foitole wala tana fang ya commandro ke enin kibar janjan lal kachata e koy control de mbe lokun killing 1 week mbe wala dila masakunda la ka foy ko nim ko be nyam sain ajanjantale sain Gambia be yakalamtale ndol fanam family ni yakalamtale nin atra altul mandantol wali oton dol sakibar janjanal commandi ngadi amali ka fale control sulata minna de wala nin ko nin ay takitiora hani kabi nin atra high court len wala nin atra mbe findila Gambia fu ngay bantale ndol be findila kantum mbe lafila Omar ya tilingo soto ay justice soto mbe lafila police wala mi nyin kala sain alse ale kuma koyo soto sain alse muta nole alse kitini nole
keba malum febe jele bang keba la lano be sakikane keba ninga trebe moy kane la fa kenyi ninga menna hello hello keba
la han kabi nyaajo fita folo hello kamal
yembe mo kan sa ne bari lino sakital no commando la fa kenyi ninga menna karabake ngajele man sekunda ye safero kele ka itandi ko silang ay ne corona report sodole men kera minister of justice minister bundame marlen tilingo kola nin kiti fana bekile nyin ko o kiti be bola itole la karola ya itandi la ko silang I paretele yo report sodole fengo fe nyanta loi kono simfala karola paretele bukata yamra ko be kebala Omar na la family mo wasala le ban
well nkade nyamen nkela seferol de nyamen bari mbebe ni social media la mbebe la WhatsApp wol jibe kanne bari nkela seferol de nyamen akamunda hane kabi iman contact kabrin nin kato findira kabrin nin press release findira Mr. Ibu John atle mandina fonnin kella nyaton koti atle kardiya mul toyala akamunda ate safaro kele a safaro minke wolen ako hane kabi nin press release nin kato min botna masakunda la fannala iba fokane ko hani kabi to lafta sede jarol dolle la kotanke ni if we have enough evidence woltala be nim police o sambala kitiola mala fay press release nim karande ba bari blado bije ka foda men to hani kabi ibe kiskisiro karale andi be lafila sede jarol la kotanke be lafila ka evidence all do so kotanke kala ke support kanata kitiola oto akamunda man fondin kel han kabriya media commande dimaso e mam media commande ko tangede badi be safaro min ke kam bakol cross kan nyamen akamunda to be min nin ka kan sai e ko masakunda ministry of justice ane masakunda e be lafila mun evidence la ko tanke e be lafila mun la ko tanke kaje ko e nyum ko ni samba kitiola odon valli scientific nin ayatara Mosa Mandaren Cole Commandino, Mosa Mr. Ibrahim John Commandino, wala Mosa Omar Badi Fama Din Commandino, ebe mini ninka kan sai. Kabra dimanche la kabrin press conference ning, kabrin press release ning safeda kunu. Sai tande be mini ninka kan wole. Masakunda ko ila safero de minke. Eko hani kabi ebe sulala mo evidence, mo sede jaro. Eko hani ito be mini ninka kan sai. Masakunda be sulala mo sede jar clean la. Munela ko danke. Bayri corona inquest ning ay safero kele ayatanda la ko. Nyum police o le nyimfa han kabi masakunda ba fukan we still need more evidence iba minni ka ta wolen masakunda so no evidence la ko dengue ak no samba kitio
okay well
oda mosafono ame masakunda la safaro me satisfy 100% ame wasa
okay ame wasa baraka ba ke keba maringol wole mu journalist keba kamarati keba mu Bitilo la senior national correspondent lati ngeje ngetentu ye wato menta ka kafum majang be bulaka nyimandi na ko noma ka dango bondi nim murtana mbadingolu ko nga faale nyamen nin sana manjang sinabla astaghfirullah nin sana mara sinabla kacha kono nim murtana ndoro nse tente wala alkanata alhamdulillah ko nga faale nyamen sana mu journalist ke balati men siata sanje muanti ay woke journalist yalale Gambia banko kam ku jamalu ay taki journalist ya fanan kono and then beduna wolbe kono ko be lata nyamen ni murtana inshallah.
You're listening to Bitilo with Mfali Fadera.
Mbaɗigolu wole mu Sanna Camara ti ngal bolo sey sana mbaɗo nga a follow ni bolo sero la ngamire yoto moyla nun yaron dadalta sana manjanne la kolenke falla mongola you know kanata je bat sana content se wota keso de jam nyene musinya flow di ngeso do bitilo de jam nsa foy ko bismillah programme to ngeble ni mole nyo konton namanandum kacha kono.
Boss Valley, Baraka Baga Inumbara. I'm happy to be on Bitilo. I mean, you are a trailblazer when it comes to these broadcast issues here in the Gambia. You're one of the first youngest journalists, me along. Like a million followers was sort of. I'm really proud to have worked with you. And I'm happy that State House brought us together in the service for country, national duty. And we continue to contribute in our own separate ways. But I'm really honored to be here in Inumbara Baga. For the record, Sanna Camara le mamanga manjande.
Baraka bake sana maringol wole musana Camara ti ko nga fa nyameng you know nga sana sama nanjang because membe kering wole muko sango sang mbe nyin karim men kono te memmu meti dunia ka nyin karo rekere kibata la nin kiba jinjennalele ka fele ko mala ke ka jibe ke simfalla menta ke jayi ke tentu ila doku kan ani ku kendo men yalon ko be wolel ke kam so ngasana men soto jang ko ngafu nyamen ameta journalist yala kiba tani kiba janjanna kiba janjango mo safo fanko mo se karanke Gambia la kiba tani kiba janjango bundala yele mola nin sana fangola baluola ay simfalu menta ala baluwo kono kato ameta kiba tani kiba janjango men siara sanji muwanti anin feng woke walale Gambia banko kan kabrin jambela jamano sana lafanga kacha foro damendo laftala doro nga sabako ma demanding ngalon ne ngela journalist ay tandi mollale tumando bato you know mo sila molbe idea sotlale ko that's what you've been doing over the years but in sabako ma demanding nga jibe esela dindi ya fo mole sa fo mole bota damendo anim fanan yela dindi yake mintole karangolo ananyim fensifa kotangolo anim fanan nim ku sorata isa fo menna ko tuma bo bato yela dindi yato aye parandi nyondo kusifa kamalo be kala munade.
Oh, thank you very much. That has definitely gone far. Yes, to be honest, I mean, Niamo Karibi, Ikakunu Najuri, Amari Badamento, and how you started. I come from a village called Boraba, the Central River region. I think a lot of people may have known about the village. It's where the famous human rights activist Madi Jawada comes from. It's also the place where those who lived, especially on the Sadawada days, would know is the home of Mansong Dambel, Eyes of the World. He was one of the leading photographers in those days. We had other popular persons like Kunkunjabade, he was an educationist. Meltewoti. So Boraba, that's the village I come from. It's just next to Keserikunda, which is the traditional home of Musa Molo. I'm sure a lot of people heard about this story. So I went to primary school in Boraba from 1987. 93, I started the common entrance. Then it was newly changed to the they call it primary school living certificate. In the long second bited the current work system that had been going. So I went to Armitage in 93 September when I was barely 12 years old, one of the smallest in school in those days. So now Armitage learned the mold. Of course, going to primary school, Nkura Borabale, Ntara Kuyang to Borabale, you know, when I say Kuyang in our culture, Kaseboyo, you understand, it's an institution. So until we went through that, and we had to spend about a month or two in the bush without seeing women and being trained to become a real man. I mean, so I think all of this contributed to making me who I am. But not writing skills. So from primary school, I was very good in writing essays, comprehension. Of course, I wasn't very distinguished to become a counselor, but among the top students in each of the classes from grade 1 all the way to common entrance sit. And once, and I went to Armitage. In those days, Armitage was one of the only government high school provinces to get that school. I'm easy now. But once, and I got admitted. So grade 7 again, up to grade 9, and then grade 9, my dad insisted that I come back to continue. Grade 10 for up to grade 11. Yeah, so basically from 95 to 98, like as a youth, that's when I was being molded. Yeah, and then my life progressed from there. But bring immediately a publication of Komase in our press club, in our school newsletter, what Monga contribute here. I remember doing 1 or 2 articles in those days. can participate in some of the school activities. So journalism for me, I think is more like a calling because bringing a school band in BTMA is the only work that I've done in my life. That is not related to journalism. So that's how I'm a journalist. Yeah.
So ya itandi ko biriben amite press call up alka safero kenun. You know, I think will malum I don't know for si fal fang be kirin karam ngoltul hanisa but you know, I think waka karandingol mako baake especially mol men yalon ko you know ibe la filaka lawyer yalu ke journalist yalo na jam offensive because ake mako men na wole mu kafka hani ke mirano critical thinking bari fanan ka diamuno jama ko na jam offensive ko tengol ndolla birindol fana bita kan num primary school ndolla press club ikan mbulanu menna ye news jibe yem news yem menje news kono ya safe woso mo nan assembly nyaro ya karamole. I don't know whether they have those things in school hanisam but I think you know woldol be abe kumala le you know ninga tare ke samana because akadiningol tanyindile ke sembentu yani but sana ya itandi ko amite ninku misafo safero dadita woledo amite la press school bari imufta amite law karambundo kibaden jam bundato nyaadile kana kadoko ke kibaden jam bunda kotongoliye banko kan because se doko ke kibaden jam bunda ba jamaleliye you know kabiring ni manyina independent bo kono point newspaper standard newspaper nying kibaden jam bunda balbe ninkumu yedoko ke wolbe wona nyaadile.
Okay, for the record, when I went to Armitage, by the time I got to 5 years I was fed up with boring life. So I started becoming very unruly, you know, as a young man, you know, I was at 17 going to 18, started a campus in Dutch, which is a violation of school rules. To be honest, I say this proudly today because I've evolved and everybody for his history sort of. So, and what we became like a kind of a radicalized group of students. I would say not kind of a rebel against the system, but we try to challenge certain things that we felt are a bit unfair against the students. However, the molding part of the schooling, of the journalism thing, a lot of us would want opportunities to write. You don't necessarily have to go to the assembly, present, you know, like what you're doing. But Amida generally is very good at molding people into leaders. So more money can identify when you're going to that school. If you're an athlete, if you are good in academia, or if you have other qualities, to create a path for yourself, school senior or some of them later became very prominent journalists. Buba SMCC, the late Buba SMCC was one of them. Ibrahim Balde, who was at GRTS and Information Department, now is in the US, Afana was one of them. Badara Sise, he was at the Observer, was one of them. These are some of the few that I recall, almost the same style, and they have been very active in the press club. And as long as if another school barrack, they all went to media directly. So they bring a school bang, grade 11. One of my unfortunate incident, another sort of year, and we have a place called End of the Island. You know, so I got expelled right away. You know, imagine grade 11 after going to school from grade 7, no interruption, no failures, no repeating. Because they are not compromising on school discipline and rules. So what that created a bit of a break in my life. I went to the village being there, and then, you know, but it gave me time to also reflect despite being young. Okay, I misstepped, but I want a second chance. So Mr. Ndur, now he was formerly the president of the Teachers Union. He was the principal there. So Mbama and somebody, my mom, my mona, my late mom, and somebody for let me go try a fresh start somewhere. So and then I na principal I could explain that I was good academically, but kunjani from Gole problem in a school, and it's a boarding school. So at some manager so that I can have a second chance. Interestingly, the principal he knows about the school. Another problem to so instantly he picked the phone and called the principal and records academic records transfer now because I'm admitting him into my school. So another chance the next year grade 11 repeat. That's why I couldn't finish in 99 because I had to repeat grade 11 and that 99 and then 2000 another grade 12 so until we call ourselves the April 10th generation. So basically, grade 10 you know, move to the combos. A lot of people were telling me try this thing. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer, a medical doctor. What was his dream? But it looks like for some reason journalism was my calling. Not trying to fit, and then by 2011 April, independent newspaper absorbed me to start their asset training. Now Johnny Kumasa wala nyama. Yeah.
Amazing. So ninkumu journalist yako na Gambia yuko bele taki bata kolea sakofango jammela watola ndo jamal beje fanan na journalist ya dati da wasango lokono andunka ku jamal le fanan moy kol men yalon ko le lata journalist ul kam ye dolu lipa ye dolu yemandi dol beje je charindi dol beje wol fata fan mo dol beje bi hani bi wala mol fang male be demento chief mane bo kono anin journalist ko tangol deda haydara menu fata na ñu musib fa kono nim bi isita ye koma fele batani wo kole al men yalon ko journalist o le wolle taki mun kule be je me yalon ko abela mine kono ela miro kono isa funo men ko nyinde nyina no la
I think it will be the assassination of Deda Haidara 2004. Deda Haidara was like in those days atelemun Nisa phone atelemun beacon of hope. He was the rock. He was he was everything in the independent media. Because I remember na former boss Alaji Jallo several times I can key there head and then this is the guy that they all look up to when it comes to advocacy and then media campaigns against certain laws and everything. That was the one who was most likely. Of course, that was the union where he earlier served chairman, but he was the publisher of the point. The time that he was being assassinated, Demba Ali Jawo was the chairman, but they still worked very well closely together. They have media independent journalism finding Bakoka. Alaji Jallo was out of the country as our managing editor. Baba Gale Jallo, who was our CEO, was also in exile in the US. Editor-in-chief called Abdullah C. Bring happened that all family are put in such a pressure that he had to leave the country. So independent, we didn't even have any editor. And this guy did not even work for the independent. So I ended up I point from to be honest. So because until some of us as young ones, we could only move on because of courage sort of. But I think it was meant to just kill independent journalism in the country so that it will be only pro-government papers that will remain. I am not very Kijo Samba, and the way he was killed, the manner, even the burial. Kazango was still bloody. I have witnessed that. I was there. I cannot still, as a young person, you would all experience like a trauma for the rest of your life. And I was only 3 years in the media at the time. Of course, I was distinguished in the sense that I front page also as a freelance trainee, as an intern, which is the equivalent of intern. What more? I understand. So bringing Keda, I never gave up. But I not courage gana bambandele ko. The journalism saying because if the other can dedicate his life to the service of the country, until as young people we don't have any excuse. Not what about us as young persons? So I never relented. Of course, not other experiences sort of along the way. I mean, such as in 2026, because independent newspaper we had suspended publication, I think a couple of weeks, for us to sort ourselves out. I remember personally going to then we had Mrs. Jallo. Baba Galala's wife was the only management member there at the time. Bring Ablaisi left. Look, we don't have to cease publication. Some of us in our lives are dependent on this. We have started a fight, me along contact, give up Nola. All the management needs to do is to recognize or identify another editor. Until as young persons, we only need a leader. Bring us a leader, we'll continue this fight. When you go, you don't have to talk to, So eventually, just to cut the long story short, they brought us Musa Sedikan. Musa Sedikan was at the Observer, but at the time he was not actively publishing because Observer, I think there was a 2 years before that, there were a group of journalists who also protested against government interference in their work. So he resigned. Yes, I think Musa Sedikan was one of them. So Musa Sambanang and Musa fit in that role as the news as the editor-in-chief. So I kick off from 2004 until 2026. When there was the Durucham coup attempt again, that's when government took advantage of that. Independent camp, by force, arrested everybody on that day. I remember Hanina Cleanalo. You know, the cleaners they have nothing to do with news gathering. Yen bear arrest, yen detain, yen samba interrogate us at the PIU. You know, drivers, security, you know, terrible, you know.
It's crazy.
But however, along that way, even after that 2024 incident, there were several incidents like us receiving death threats.
You mean 2004?
2004, after that, Kujamala happened, yen also attacked the Green Boys, then they were not called junglers, they are called Green Boys. You know, yen also attacked Suto and set it ablaze. Security guard me is called Madi CCA. Now Ngamara is at MDI, is going to school. He was Uncle Sam security guy. Yeah, so he had to run for his life. Yeah. So allow running from government, neighbors came out and then did blaze now everything. Neighbor laying ran office rescue. So before the ambassador then these people fled. But they sent us an anonymous letter, we are just trying to teach you a lesson. Next time I'll take Canada. That happened, no survival. I remember another incident. Management secured a machine from Germany to go more printing press from mega printing independent, not to print for us, including the Amadia printing press and the others because printing Kemole. So we have to secretly find a way can a newspaper publish no more. Yeah, another machine.
Mina wotole demanding if ni
cool.
We look at you know koleal men yalon ko yewol taki comme kany staman serol men fo jongulal bari lafa ke nyininga menna ya itandi ko 2004 biri de da haidara fa wo mu kufernati me yalon ko inana ta nyina la wala me yow sabu wala mu ya fa nyamen ya ke nyamen anin ku ko tamon men be dendi wala bari ngaje wo ko kola nyama comme la satarodo almansila imam bori bari iko alla boss ñu leko al ñaaton ko samanan ndol paretele pour nga do ko kem paretele fananga le paretele pour kan niyo laje wo fatiya bota min dole
del mo camera yile so manga dangoro rek.
No, because I want to understand what was the motivation to keep fighting on?
Yeah.
Because yala mol fana ma
I know Gambia jareta nyawola mfali. At the time Gambia situation on menkono mfali. If the independent journalists were not here, we would have been in a different situation now. Until that presence, independent newspaper presence, it made it very difficult, kind of frustrated the Jammeh regime to consolidate himself to the extent that Mota Mamandino, until look at our biggest headache, independent newspaper.
For independent a lot of people men kala ite independent lonna because ya soro nun junala nata burka okono tumando bato mo jamal beje janni nyabe fanula nyabe yelle te independent lonna independent kam mun kibar sifale safeno mun kibar kayti sifale matinu.
No, independent was a critical tabakale. We call that independent because the independent router from the Daily Observer. Baba Gale Jallo, who was our boss at the time, and in Europe, we are both working at the Daily Observer. Daily Observer being Kenneth Besnat, Jammeh, one of the things that Jammeh tried to do with Amadou Samba and Baba Job was to intimidate that refugee here who's initiated the Daily Observer, Kabai Kenneth Best. Yeah, intimidate and he had to
Kenneth Best mu Liberian already. Kosana ya fanyame another refugee yala la no Gambia, brabe Gambia wati botala ay newspaper lo memu Daily Observer. So iko bini coup d'etat kita Baba Job ni Amadou Samba.
Yes, including Jammeh. In other menke, manoni ya harassed to the point you kind of forced them to leave and to leave the country without his other investment, which is the Observer. Well, and even at the Jammeh Commission, it is still difficult to establish exactly Jumatam Observer after Kenneth Best left. You know, some said Jammeh, but on the paper, only Ahmad Samba took Atarige as the publisher. But Ahmad Samba for now was actually representing someone else's interest. Mbengalon at the time, it was the regime. But Moneke, policy upon policy was directly interfering in the work of the Daily Observer, trying to dictate in Yanta Kamune Fundi, Manya Kamune Fundi. So independent journalism, Odumo Yakaro the Menkan, Omantar Kedunge, Elatagla pro government, Nungu, Latagla government and mouthpiece lady. I target to serve only like eventually how it ended up. I can only to showcase that side of the government from Kony, government propaganda outlet. So, Walakinandi Yorojal Baba Gale Jallo, who was the news editor at the time, in 1999 resigned from Observer as news editor. Prukara start a paper called The Independent. The name because of the fact that they want to work independently without any control from the state or any other interference. So like only loyalty was to the news and public interest. And Euro went to start the Observer, and they started from Bakau, Ekafunti, Domani, Domanding, then another moved to Westfield. When I joined them there in 2001 after the elections, sorry, before the elections, 2001, when I came, it was prior to the elections. They were at the Observer. Sorry, they were at the Westfield, just city limits Benundamentoje. We were just next to city limits there. So and the man left, and then government took over the paper. So independent newspaper, not a traditional maintain the news critical battle of the government. We are very committed to exposing malgovernance. Most of the evidence that they've been calling out, majority of them independently published on existence of junglers that are secretly making people disappear, because more disappearances were happening. But government was refusing. They were refusing to acknowledge it, and also they were not taking responsibility for it. Independent has been publishing about that. Even the execution of Ghanaians, independent newspapers are published. The NIL overreach no more. A lot of them NIL coming. Like one day I'm on the arrest in the hotel industry, they are more taboo, intimidate and send him out of the country. Independent published. So more money kumboda bangoka wodumo. Ema hanikata publicly. The only point getting no men are independent. So this was very daring. I mean, as in my modern days as a young reporter, so for me, that has shaped my thinking. It has shaped my ethical practices and how I kind of cultivated an independent culture in journalism.
So nying fatia ko ayata ni nyamen na aning lo dula bamban ngo yementanu independent lo yementanu kaje ko kontiboni to nya so do banko kam ay mun ku sifalel wulu independent ngala ne ya do man ngo datile kafo iboita lukanne and all of those things. If you can give us examples of some of those things aning ko na tala banyame independent ye.
Yeah, before 2026 when we got closed down, in death threats came.
You mean 2006?
Yeah, closed down, you're closed down. I mean, without any court orders, without any phone go, because independent arrest rule be because someone no court. Of course, I think that was once that they attempted to do that because Yoro Jallo and Baba Galle were non-Gambians. They had to do that kind of thing, go to their homes in their villages. Baba Galle is from Farafenye, Yoro is from Sankoya in Jara, to go there to immigration guys to go and interrogate their parents, just to establish whether those people are even Gambians or non-Gambians. So they've done everything. But your man give up, and they had to build something that in the first so if you don't have a choice. You have to make sure you also live to certain standards. So one of the standards of independent journalists are but when things got tough, editor and publishers we were in America after 2004. Baba Galle Fanang stayed there. I think most of them stayed away because family pressure at the time. Kind of certain kind of situation, family funka because any day they'll just get up and here go carry father. So go bring ameko de Hyderabad father. The Hyderabad father, no can tell kolika ameko Allah boss the father. I was at the funeral, the burial grounds in Joshua. Nga call so mo ka fa ni ameko yala international kolika nga yala boss yo wala fa. Ngo no tell boss mo yoro jalolti. Yoro is out of the country. Ngo bari na boss la terima ba. Memun na yu boss nyo la kebati journalism kono yo wala fa. Yeah, understand. So imagine in those days. Then I started talking about the arson attacks. And also another one. I think Yoro said it was about 1.4 million or $4 million. I can't remember the exact number. But yeah, sort of masingomena. Come every cost ka sananka, sipnanka, clear jang ka install and yane doko kumase. Nga kumase within 6 months. Masuning itaraje attack le suto. Na printa be doko keka. When they came with their FMGO, they fired the shots, panicking. And then they started pouring Izanso on the machine. Machine could not 6 months sort of follow. Yeah, put on fire. But remember Izanso bon kanung. What unfortunately, the Maya the Fonamura. So Masumbe Janikan and Talamul, while that was happening now, they had to think of rescuing the guy who was already on fire. Maybe I'm more calculated because Zanso Nika Bonage Fanamuda. You stand the risk of also getting catching fire. So ka kanandi ka duni mo e bori lo boro nyin kono wala kido jolanta. That's what confirmed to us that this was state sponsored because gun was identified as a standard Gambia Armed Forces issued weapon. Yeah. So, but we lost our machine. Later on, I was covering the National Assembly when Hamad Ba, the current Minister of Lands, as an NRP parliamentarian at the time, Sirif Diba was the speaker. Hamad raised the matter in the Parliament Co. Information Sotole invited the Interior Minister Co. One of the state guard soldiers has sustained burns from the attack on the independent. What the Minister of Interior could say. Come and explain now what. I can remember this scene vividly. Fatumata Jahumba Sise, then a nominated member, interjected that speakers should not entertain that for national security reasons. But Sirif Diba kono what the public has a right to know. So Hamanda question must be answered. State guard, and the only thing they could say, the minister could say was, he has to find out and substantiate how truthful that is. But everybody know this was the truth. He was receiving treatment under, I think it was Bajinga, state guard commander, I think it was Bajinga or someone at the time. Secret treatment receipt. These are the team, Wallon Junglers and those green boys. Later on, So 2006, Briam Mall closed down. There were not first experience of arrest. Coming police along with others, Mall Samba, PIU. It's very intimidating when you are young. After all the things that have happened, that I gave Briam question and details, ID cards and everything. Because staff all base. I think after by 2 or so, all of us went. But Musa Sedikan and Madi Sise. In 2006, I think I need to say that point. Madi Sise also came because Alimatu, the Baba Galera wife, also was going to US to join her husband. So we needed somebody to also work in the managerial field. Madi Sise, as the media from go at the time, as the president of the Gambia Press Union, and also working with Swaibu Konate, in a rattle recruit Kananang to serve as manager. So that, because the new Lebje Kakibal belong to Marinata in January, I think, in January, February, March, independence. But video was running gate, the Musa Sedikan and Madi, Samba NIL. The 3 weeks, Musa Sedikan and Madi, of course, everybody heard the stories. The total Mekela, Musa Sedikan had a block at almost in 2 places. Kabayoneto Taka Dafara, because Johnny Soldaka Siale. Things that they've happened, this story personally, you set tears. Well, you Kadafara, Musa Hani Bini Akoros, you see that bayonet mark on him. This is not an ordinary knife, it's a military bayonet. A moment any anesthetic sort of coming, is a member physically, Kamuta Kokala, Abulo Yomuta Yokati, Kakasabero Mena, Yablomda Yakati in the 2 places. It come, Ikada Dingo Sing, Bade Gwekara, Yebulaji, up to his own level. It can go be burial life to intimidate to threaten you.
Allah.
Menka wala when electrocution of killing. By the time you were released because of the international press or member government kang yala ne Johnny so mangenda solidarity men sort of and I were released after 3 weeks without any charges. After doing everything, they can just go home. You were released one of our colleagues, Lamin Fati Yofana Sambana, because story dole funded on the independent call. I think we were publishing the list of those who got arrested during Kamala coup d'etat. That list is very important. Why? Because Odumo Kamola more arrested at late in the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Inila night Samba. And when you go to NI, you go to military, that anyway, everybody would deny knowledge of you. So until ko documenting menge ukamol them to track down ela people. Momoni nada mole akoyo ina karita la kunu. Ngalisto compile. So in the list, one of the names called Sambaba was there. There was one of the NIA directors at the time called Sambaba. Yeah. But also there was a soldier called Corporal Sambaba who was arrested in connection with the coup. So in exactly. In Toflo, there was a mix-up. So in our publication, we said Sambaba, the former NIA director and former interior minister, instead of Sambaba, the corporal, the military. We got the name correct, but Kadlo in mix Tambulo. So Bire Madi senior release. You don't for 2 months or be can sign international community and all of that thing. Government had to justify their action. In other charge after keeping him for 2 months at the NIA, you have to do menki Jarada Manela and other long because you remember Molenko all along. I think when they got released. Yeah, Samba court. I think he was the first journalist convict on this first publication charges. Film C court trial. And then he's 6 months in prison, or $50,000 fine. At the time, $50,000 was a lot of money. You know, GPU had to run to some of their philanthropists who supported the media to raise that money. Runs to mile to payment and every year mile to by the time after mile to already you prison you wouldn't this journalist like to get released into the prison committee. Billahi wa ta'ala. Allah adema. No, that's Lamin Fati.
Lamin Fati, okay.
Yes, Lamin Fati. After 2006, he lived in Dakar until Masakunda Kingdom. Almost 15 years or more about Dakar. You know, he couldn't stay here anymore, any longer. After that incident. I mean, it's a more normal no cutting. So Fati never until B, of course, I compensation also because ECOWAS court in 2015 or so. Case in winter, Gambia government paid them compensation. That was after when Jammeh left. Madi Cisse, Lamin Fati, Ala Job, who was editor at the Observer, who was tortured. I think he was seriously beaten when he got arrested. And then Sanna Camara, formerly Abenung Jammeh press secretary. Fati Jammeh, I think this were the four. They secured some victory against the government. In that case, I was a key witness. You know, at the ECOWAS court. You know, lawyer flew from the UK, counted on Dakar, and then met with us to prepare our statements and everything are notarized. And it was sent at the ECOWAS court in support of those who have been suing the government, because Mele's plaintiff souls were all tortured victims. And there I was arrested twice, 3 times, and all what I've gone through, what I've experienced. No story went to support the case. Of course, alhamdulillah, you know, yes. But at least I survived today to talk about this. No, but
ikan yi mem famo faten yalla mo jamalu la miro ni jero fon ka sawun damendo hani mol men yalla ko lipa soron bara ni toro aning asilo
ake traumatized le traumatized le I have a cousin whom I was staying with akan tonya na ako ninda nga yaja matomo ndika mbod len kadunda la rankoro after they had like killing. He's sarcastically, you know, akan tonya wala le, but I wouldn't say happened to exactly, but you can see that fear in us. I mean, Kamola. A lot of my colleagues left the media after that Dera Hydra incident, and in after 2006 incident. So only few of us stayed because when Musa left after 2006. Makalo was with us as a reporter. Later, he had a news editor. He also left through Ghana. Then Omar Ba went to Senegal and then Ghana. Then they are now in Rhode Island in the US. It was myself, Lamin Jai, Ngamera, Mary Menda in the newsroom. But a lot of others left. We had journalists, they ended up becoming bankers. We had journalists who ended up becoming teachers. So I welcome on a multicultural and everybody was losing hope in journalism, especially independent journalism. The worst of it is that until we were left here jobless, just get a job at the time from the other papers was a problem.
Because more
exactly. I remember Lamin Fati I'm not going to name the paper, but Lamin Fati had them down to one, but then he released from NIA detention. At one of the papers, at get a job. So as I found somebody, because as a family man, you know what the publisher told him? I go do what you done, huh? I go tie his work every month and salary dealer. You don't have to work. But I will prefer you don't work here. You can have problem with it. But every month you come back dealer.
Yes,
yeah, that's how we become. It was terrible. Doku sort of was a problem. Economic survival was a problem. But we never gave up. We continued pushing, you know, and alhamdulillah, we have a different Gambia. That's what we fought for. That's what we've been sacrificing for.
Ngamira mo jamal beje ika nyinale nyin koleal ni mbata kolu mole menu taki nyin nitorolu parolu ni yemangol men yalon ko kibatala ni kibaje jinale wolle taki, and I hope people can remember that, you know, and I hope fanam sako mol men yalon ko iben na kanti ya karola, you know, nyin seke fenti me yalon ko, you know, ikana nyinala and ikana murundi kulu kono mbata men kono amanke kusone yarindi sana. I want us to move to your own personal experience. Yenyi mensara ten kiba tani kiba janyo bundabe nun tenenu mol men ba ko ne be nyina takikam bari te kundi ngo fanam nga jele ko ifana nata dung e kasida wati sotata nun ye mutanu ye ares mon kukan ko ye kibar kayto le sefenun mem man dienu dukare do mandi fo mole wodo ba
yes ntanga arrest to sinya sabale. The first one was 2006. The second one was in 2010. I was editing the Daily News at the time because Madisi said after trying every effort to independently open was impossible because of certain reasons. Malanya call for on air, but another person paper commenced in 2009. You know, and then he recruited me to come there and work with him on the paper. So I helped him to start the paper. We worked together. And the paper Madisi who is now the National Assembly member for Senegal West. You know, the paper was called the Daily News. So I was the founder editor. He is the publisher, but I worked under him in charge of the news. So a similar tradition follow independent style of journalism. A lot of people were coming for our paper. The man was very high at the time because being independent journalism, independent journalism, so when Daily News started coming, a lot of people were saying go for independent more than correct. Daily News, but it was totally different publisher, different from gold. So paper got popular and it was rising. I started with a weekly, data bi-weekly, and within 1 year, data 3 hours a week. Yes, now 1 year dokuje under Madisi. But one of the instances that got me arrested, the bombsters. Remember, Yankuba Toure was the minister. You know, bombsters solely Sojarol on list against them on the beaches because there was a study done that said that claim the bombsters were the ones contributing to Gambia. You know, they totally put the blame unjustifiably on the bombsters. When in reality, Jamaica Himarate Kolaken and the West were advising, they issuing travel advice against tourists visiting the Gambia. So the arrivals dropped but it maybe if they go after this soldier, what more they create a unit called Tourism Security Unit under the National Guard. In National Guards, coming parallel you go there, lapi, so Seku Jammeh, he was later on the secretary of the Gambia President. I'm sure a lot of people know about him. Very young and dynamic journalist. Currently, I tell him New York Times West Africa correspondent based in Dakar. At the time, we were working together and the editorial team. So Seku Jammeh, we went kata
Bichoto Kabom interview.
Exactly. Kata Bichoto to go and verify and document what we have seen there. I remember this day, Kabo West Churchistan, where the office was. Ngataman similar for West from Westfield, Ngataman similar for traffic light. Nata pass you to Kaji Kotu Beach. You can look on there, you know. And then no be kamaje. While we were there doing our interviews and then taking pictures, ni na the interview there you mo ko interview banda serene. Ni interview ngelo bundo na ngelo itolo baramo natal. Ni me baramo so na kunto ngota natal. Some are telling us their bidding experience and how they've been, you understand. But because bombstarism is a broad area,
sorry, Sojarol Katanu bombsal can kelipa kay bondi bijoga.
Well, tourism security unit is still there, but now PIU like a jeron. Independent town men and the Karanunji, almost Sojarol like a jeron. PIU fountain unji, Sojarol lebenunji. And Jamaica time, you know, soldiers they had no control. Men they are like a boys all the recommend you know. Some of them, boys all booted and found bombs because everybody was waiting for the opportunity. It was so long while it was also they found you know. So this story had to be told. In the documenting Kekang, Ndara Tubabu Doja Mealongo, Nani Sumpudu Nunja, Sumpuro Mealongo, every in our estimation was a minor.
Amansanyita says he.
No. New Yefonka Amansanyita says he. Ntanganatalo Nintaka Kameta Hafon Natal. Pawon from Manjade, but Sumpuro Ninja, Kako, hey, come where Fako, those people die, Monatal. Tuago die binding. Ako Nanatalo Kameta, I wait to Jumata, made a fall come in the fun like as a Gambian, very proud, Meladogo Kekan, become firing at the time because of story milk of brutality and everything. So for me, I've got an evidence of a pedophilia, an act of pedophile. Yeah, understand?
Yeah.
If you don't delete this picture, I'll give you a problem. In my country, give me a fucking problem. Go ahead. Since I telephone and call the state guards. Before I know military police all that and I am all surround. Yan somebody Seku Jammeh. Seku Jammeh fuck up the byro, Kunjara, and I dealing at go boy. Left for that little line. So you're all escort. Yaravan with a Lanko, that guy will Jamela pilot will work a Jamela plane no fly and a personal plane. So the state guards came and they are treating this thing as a national security matter.
Wow.
Somebody questioning and I'll go on that did I think I don't contact the leader. Seku took the camera from me and I'll delete it, but you can obey when they investigate. Yamol escort Yambola Motokono. So you're only para Baramoton escort. There are Seku Jamela Kodado in Kotu. Karaje Kala ID card na la Fungul Kajenke. The Baraja independent Samba was even in Bundumbo and the Samba for ya. In fact, menga mol escort based on the orders. Iko mole ko ndefa mbi futana ya ko bro. Iko nyego marnye baro moto ko jal. Let us not go with you because not to cause panic for your family. Iko just go inside, bring your ID card. Yana ngata nyola. Ilo rabunda re mbadu nje. Out of kote silongo. Yana hana madi yala ngode, you know.
Yeah.
They feel we have been unjustifiably been harassed. So and ID card and we went there. By the time we got there, story was picked on the BBC Focus on Africa. So Madi Cisse was on the ground. Uncle Sam of Freya was on the ground. So some of our media started converging there. Now, I'm not going to content. Now, Madi said, "You'll damn because I until we have to write an undertaking." Oh, they wrote an undertaking and said we have to sign it. And ID card photocopy that picture is not going to be published in the matter of national security. You didn't have a choice. You have to live to tell this story. Yes. The only option is so we agreed. Camera samba, we are more released. You know, that was my second experience. That experience happened when I was at the standard newspaper, because after Daily News, after 1 year, I moved to Ntaranun GPU to do my professional diploma program. So I'm able to standard newspaper finance. When it started in 2010, I think within a month or so, closed down. After a year, when already the resources be wasted and then among paper published no frustrated young, and allowed to resume publication. 2011, when he was starting, he came to the GPU to look for somebody and immensely cat on commercial revive no. So I remember our executive director at the GPU, who kind of went to recommend I got Sanna experience, he coming with a lot of experience. I think he will make a good phone call colleague for you. So Serivium can another standard revive. So standard newspaper Bitilo 2011, 2012, my GPU program bang. So I work full time for the standard. But Bitilo after a couple of months, GPU na training program here after institutionalized. And to do that they need founding staff. So until my graduate, I'm on the top graduating students and I'm more higher to bring us to work there as staff journalism trainers. So we work with our Danish partners who were coming to fund the school, but also giving us capacity. So now full time sign at the GPU School of Journalism.
GPU. Yeah.
Then Ningita for Kata Standard, while also working as Serifla chief reporter. So from 2012 until 2014, 2014, one of the story, one of the next arrest fanana. That was the third time. Arrest I wrote a story about trafficking, human trafficking. Na Gambian girls who me recruit young in the Middle East. There is labor opportunity there. Girl exploited in so many ways in terms of phone. You know, in Dubai, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Lebanon. These are the primary ones. So story was becoming because these people were connected with Jammeh at the time. Opportunity was
Jumal ni Jammeh connected nu.
The agents who were recruiting people here, for any person someone into the program. But it will come. Company me alongo and in the supporters of Jammeh, the APRC women, nakata Jammeh fasa kanno. Ni election tambita ka vole ko si dung sambanang do opportunity de la be atamo la be dogo kala jana. You understand? So and then Ansumana Jammeh, one of Jammeh's cousins, Ansumana Jammeh, remember no KGI at the state Jana. He was the main person. Passport Catalan because Kanila Group Fund was involved in this. There are other operators, but the fund were involved in this. So I'm going to investigate where I was at the standard. Never realized even the police were having problems to prosecute these people near arrest because cases were coming to the police about the experience of these girls in the Middle East. But police couldn't act on them because of a connection with the regime at the time. So when the trafficking in persons report was released in 2014 by the U.S. State Department, Gambia ranked on tier 3, which means that Gambia is a source, a destination, and a transit country for human trafficking in girls and young women, sex trafficking, and all of that. But I did further digging to get interview police perspective sort of. Some victim interview. I spoke to the lawyers and then some of the public health officials. So now for story I was supposed to be a civil, but now for story may release. Police admit problems in tackling human trafficking.
What a problem would that?
BBC and BBC is
Hello, Sanna, come well, bang.
Again, I hope you haven't exhausted the 1 hour.
No, ila fenko le kasaki ka fanya dile ngamira network ole be la fakan jamfa do mani so ebe fenda foka water which is very important but asaki ta nyamen je sa wontan tulola ni nga teresa saba ko ma demanding e ko biri story in sa vetara police olukan for their version.
Yes, and the headline on the Standard newspaper was police admit problems in tackling human trafficking. On the front page, I found it on Friday paper. Yajale. O story fundunung after Yahya Jammeh was in Malabo on Africa Union Summit. BBC story him pick up because Omar Wali was on the ground. Yajale announced on the BBC Focus on Africa. So in the evening after Juma Sal call, I got a call from an anonymous somebody. When you go, police are coming for you. If you're not able to cross it, I'm going to command that down and I'm not going anywhere. Go story you go yeah, more than already when you go police there is an order for your arrest. It's better you cross. I'm going to command them, let them come.
Wow.
But while on the like I did Pujabi. He was
Sana we be kolea soro kang internet ola karola le anding ikanyi meng Saturday is pretty interesting. Iko biring ni atrebe moy kanne yes so ninga adresse auto senkan drone eko biring moye call private number la ko eko ngakibaro sodoro ko isi arrest no le bori eko ya mari jabi munal
ngai mandala I said I'm not going anywhere I'm mandala borla I'm going mandala let them come I'm here go nga story men sabe yen samba anywhere I'm bad different like
so inatale
yeah well they were on the way from Banjul yalla police unit mal na arrest no it was the major crimes unit. Police all major crimes unit. I'm in the history of Gambia journalism. I'm not nambale. Yende nambale invite. Yende nambale commando. Will not ante nambale no man. I mean, a journalist publishing a story. Major crimes. Maybe Babla go international crimes, money laundering, terrorism, or civil. We went after a journalist. It's great journalist. He that kind of powerful film go kina monoma. Well, but on their way coming. Another person from David Fanang as the PRO was also in trouble because at the Fanang Brian Kula when we are in a problem. When you bring someone that have been not bosses, we are under a lot of pressure. New story, it looks like I'm all hot in the high office. So when you David Kujabi, the PRO, David Kujabi.
Oh, okay. Menka diamond police David Kujabi.
Exactly. Yes. We are in big problem. Nisano. Nanam Bunu station na Benje. Because these people are they have orders for your arrest and they are coming for you. But I told them call you come. There's no need for them to come for and meet you at your home. Akonya go sinano Bunu nenkai ha. So that Bunu ni bendaje. Yajel. But while I went there, young person and everything, we have to take your statement. Go ahead. Na statement no yadi na ngasa but ngamen save you go. I stand by my story and on anything for the explain without the presence of my lawyer. But while they were there, these people were also on the communication with police IGP. You know them to Fananka Fuego, I'll hold on for I have to call the interior minister. Because at the time Usman Sonko was the interior minister, Very powerful guy. That day Jammeh was coming from Malabo, Sudo Kana Airport. Bring around 4 or 5 Bunu station for Sudo around 11 when Jammeh landed. That's when the final order was given. It can release. Let me spend the night and detain over the weekend.
Wow.
So ngala selo kono wala nyama wolo yening kum criminal in the same cell. Ngala je wo suto. Na mo family from malon what happened because I can't have chance to communicate them. For Samuel, no more ya long ko sana yela selo kono le because Emile Touré, the president of the GPU, nga chance to cartel contact. Birin kana nunje. So ate fana birin ko meda manje. He came to the Bunu station and found me there. And I confirmed I was on the arrest, so he left. Okay, since I confirmed is in your custody, because you don't want the situation where everybody's denying from Maja. So the next morning, Sereboja had a contact Sudo, but he didn't show up, by the way. Not from my boss. He didn't show up at the time, and you can understand. Not another started for detail along with me. But the next morning, first thing in the morning, he came, and then I entered the he wasn't really happy. So that's Amos Sanye, and then Gago Galeko and Bondi talk to them, and also tell they are only in attacks to keep me there, but it am authorities over my release or whatever, bail or whatever. GPU came there, contact their lawyers. My family came. A lot of people who came to show solidarity. A lawyer contact. The release that no for Monday. So some of Anyanda can last but God saw when Sheriff left there, he had known some people high up in office. He made certain calls. And Arabugo, he release. Instead of report on Monday at the police headquarters. So Saturday, the second day, another release in the afternoon. Yalon, David Kujabi came, and then when you go yourself bail dealer. You get but when you go, but the guarantee is that you have to come to the headquarters on Monday. I got no problem. So I got the release, not with my family. But when I went to police headquarters on Monday, and then they'll make a call to IGP. IGP have to call somewhere. So somebody was definitely giving orders to the IGP. Somebody higher up. And in the Gambia, the only two people me along go, well, let's see Sembo or IGP la. Is the Minister of Interior or the President? Or the office of the President. I will not say the President because my evidence is but is there a Minister of Interior? Minister of Interior, because I'm on the phone. He and the guys to halfway go, we are on our way to the airport with the minister. So we'll let you know. Once I talk with him, we'll let you know. When I was under that film going, So IGP was also evidently acting on orders. New reporter at the major crimes, Bodokeda, he was the commissioner of major crimes at the time, commander, internal office, Gariporatelea. Tonyale Mantocho, and then, but it can let time over the way, and then Motujang, but when I call can around it, release on Saturday. On Monday, Daily Observer came with a front page story from the Minister of Justice, where NATIP, which is the National Against Trafficking and Persons, National Agency Against Trafficking and Persons, came with a statement, can tell a story in whitewash on the front page of the Observer. And in the Gambia, that statement alone, Nyasamba Court is not a journalist. But notwithstanding,
ye kibar kayto le safe membe dending e ka molu menu traffic e ka molu menu bondi Gambia musol nin sunkudi ngolu ninkumu kate ke samba dulal dementi alon ko mo saba fanko e ka tara al halo men nyama sutiara joy yandiro la e ka tara doku bala la je bukejo ani won festival
doku da manden some of them face sexual exploitation. There was this girl who in 2015 or so, 2 a.m. at night, at the highway cross in Beirut, Motolia, like she was knocked down by a car. This was a highway, a freeway. Imagine her, Birimoto Yada Buntang, at the boy before the other cars will know more bijang. What is a worker, a domestic worker, supposed to be doing on a highway at 2 a.m. at night valley? That incident happened. To confirm another confirm about this trafficking is a very serious matter. Because individual man experience in the Middle East, when they come back, it is a complaint lodge at the police. For some reason, it can have case in withdrawal. So police even to get witnesses was a problem because they may interview Mary Sonda to become a witness, but once they want to take the matter to the court, they withdraw their cases.
So ite wala kibaro sa funu mansa kunda parda wala fani andila nung.
Ikoya Jammeh claims ko ntenin to babole do ko kekam pour katela kala imetinya because that story was embarrassing for him. He was with his peers in African Union when they are talking about Gambia, and there was no positive thing except trafficking and sexual phone call were in about Gambia. So they thought that they said I was deliberately making that effort. But this is part of a strategic campaign against independent journalists because we are the last remnants, remember? The last remnants sold. So this is an attempt to get silence from the media scene. So this was the reason behind my arrest. I was going to be indefinitely detained. Actually, somebody up there did not intervene on my behalf. On air, Barry, Mole intervened to order the IGP Kayo release this guy. This a family man is responsible, he's not a criminal. Nalia Coxon internet, any charges against him. You need to release him to go to his family. Why do you want to keep him until Monday? Because that's how I got my release. No matter the boss, Serif Bojang is around, he's here. You can call him near any idea. Serif Bojang did that. So that's how he secured my release. And at the time he was not even minister. He was only published in the Standard, yes. So that's how I got released. But Omari Fanang afterwards, within a week or so, he had a fire from government. Some said it has to do with my case. I don't know. Only God knows. the fact that he intervened pre-enter release on the custody because others came from telephone kono. Notwithstanding, so wo case in another evolve. The Ministry of Justice la press release. Nka release on the weekly basis. Nka several times at the police headquarters. We are in the samanda. Ika apanya instead for 3-4 yana apanya sa yana ansam. O yana in 2 days time. Mbota ni nala la udumo ni mambure janyol kabenje who were being facing charges of economic crimes and other high profile from who were under detention at the time, who were in custody, who were being investigated. Ni wala kabenje wotumo major crimes, and then after 1 month around the middle of in the second month in the first week, Ministry of Foreign Affairs another press release bondi again countering na story.
Wow.
So this has raised the tempo. So
Nkafala kamta ko story e man sekunda de unumbake.
Exactly. Na lawyer I think and I think they are trying to find grounds can surround no. Either you surround or ngasila bango blank, something like that. Yeah, but definitely I didn't want to go. Anyway, I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay and even some but I wasn't willing to leave. Yeah, but later some human rights organizations not on contact Ilako has gone to a point that the state has manifested very serious interest in this case. If you continue to live here, security might be in jeopardy. So we have to find a way to put a bank obla. Yeah. Well, I'm not convinced to leave the country for my safety because we couldn't either end up. In fact, before Bekela, you need lawyer Bolejang. Lawyer Lamin S. Camara. He was my lawyer. Lamin Camara ya meeting soto, and then through the meeting in order for you legally ngalong ko in case it has a political motive. We'll do our best to defend you. But in all no fair trial sotola. Nilla intermovement holon case silence and they're going to jail in the court. It fair trial sotola. It will just be a procedural, but kabo case in Bekela fair trial whatever. When you go by the security option or to defend the sign. You can to defend the sign, tell them for but in legally in South Africa, this our stance. If they take you to court tomorrow, we'll come and defend you. But in the security option, and at the chambers at the time, like Camara Yan Jamaica Dogano. Edward Singade. You understand? So that means that it's not only about legal, but Edward had access, he knows people he could call and stuff. But the security options in your phone. This is why I left in 2014. Not a leave. I wanted to go to Ghana, but let me go to Senegal because my left Kajampana family. So I went to Senegal 2014. Based again, and from there I did a lot of work actually. Not a lot of evidence on not only in Lebanon and Kuwait and Dubai, but even as close as Egypt here. A lot of evidence coming about
Laftale ngalo woto demanding namanandung Senegal kono. Kalamola be hakilo blandi doronko anin jibe lalu alnim bitilo lemu nin Sanna Camara lebe jang journalist Sanna Camara akeda moti me alonko a meta journalist ala kibata nin kiba janjango kalia mo nyameng atol membe moy ka radio Gambia banko kangal be moy kam Vibes FM le 106.1 FM atol membe njibe kan dulal to bitilo le mu YouTube Facebook and black ko mba fla le ko subscribe na channel odo APS International wala blobe na bitilo kibaro koma sana ye nin sana ye fenjama kacha ay kiba ta nin kiba janjango dati nyameng ay do ko ke dinkiral menuto koleal nin mantorolu ay menu taki ay menu balu do ko kono kibata nin kiba janjango mbele amoy nyola mo jamal fana ben jibe kan nga mo fango soto le fango sana men ben jibe kan Facebook ngamra police kotole mati fo police ole mbam hani saying akari da official kono le meni yete la case investigate at the time with the police ka fa sirif sedi baro ngamoso dele membe la ko CDA kan nyintembenna amari ben jibe kan but sana ya sata ko data aduta afutata tembe de folla bangola ifasa lalu imako iralu aning mol men yalon ko badingol mut yaje ko silang ko kata nyameng aman ko e prietu jang because ngajele ko man sakunda kam do ko ila kiba ka do men safe aye dewle fenne me yalon ko imam pare ka sabarota kodo ya ko nyin safe ya bay ya jabi ya kuma jama fa kodo annun ikata police ikana e betani na la police olia so la fake nyini nga menna iye Gambia bula nyaadile ila Michael be mudri na ha Afele nga bondi, nga bondi.
Okay. So na silol bi jelem fali. Na bukan na silol for on air. Tomorrow when Asivana de iba murno di same silol ko dem. So mbuka for how we Mr. Baronyi nin kanak. Ate you know what I told them? I was going to the village. My parents are concerned. So bari minal on Monday. Go over the weekend sponsor no village to go and see my dad so that they know I'm okay. I'm on Monday ngana be report. From Monday ngana phone be park from parade. Ni me bidala na wife super kanja dada nye boy. Modo na wife man kata Senegal den ka go bidala village do ngam park. Makondo ma kondo kola. Ngo fefes. Jamming around this time of the Mafanko I was on the Senegal over the other side of Senegal at the border. So I made a call to somebody in the car and I go, I think I'm going to call Serif Boyan Junior. I want to call. Boy, are you coming? I've made a very wise move. When you go to Dakar, just call me. So I started traveling that evening. At the point, I'm not like I said, not for publicly how we got a use, but that's how I got to Dakar. But definitely
mol mentare exile bu kela silo fo de nga fat camera france rejene afalan kana de nyame ama fo de nga bra kabo tulala bu ko le kono but so but la fake nyini nga men sana how ngala ne ku ko lem balem gela family ni la dimbayal ye mo betu je idalta fon fen na Gambia yo betu come how did you come to that decision? Was it easy for you?
No, definitely not. It's the most difficult decision that I have to make. Imagine I had 3 kids at the time. The youngest of my kid, of course, you met my family. The youngest kid at the time, Mariama, was only 1 year 2 months when I was living here. My eldest was only nursery 1, and there was a boy between these 2 girls. So living here at the time, no the known Benjamin Dom Valley. I'm easy, you know. It's a very difficult decision, but you like I said, as a journalist, you need to survive in order to tell the story. If I stayed here going to prison, it would have been more devastating for them than me living at the time. So leaving the country was a better option than staying in Young under the circumstances when we came in. So it was a better option, a better evil, I would say.
Yeah, no, aniku ya kulem alayalong definitely. I think mo manyan naka force kila banko bula munku kanko ibela do wala. I think that was not right at all. Wananade keno la kuti mafala menako is the right thing under any circumstance. Sana lafa ngadun Senegal biritara iko ye frontiero saung isabadita Senegal banko kang. How was exile in Senegal? Fuye mo kota mo letaraje bang the early days. Can you take us through ilataro Senegal kono anim fanang kolu yela mata nyamem fo janni be sikula je?
Yes, when I left here, my grandson, there's a safety fund. Me along go, journalists when you are in problem, very locate can okay, they might be settled in a third country. Yeah. So when I went to Senegal, I dem also follow na community member journalism community. They welcome me, and then I had to in the next morning bring water for now in the several days after that. I had to first of the things. One of the things you need to do is to go to Senegal Ministry of Interior to declare that you have left your country to seek asylum. Like what they call refugee status. First, register with the system you are long in the record you are living in Senegal, you are under Senegal's protection. So I just became one of the members who were coming to Senegal at the time when these things were crazy. So I choose that one. Then from there I had a lot of meetings. More media can contact Niga dia interview soto. Also, some of the journalist organizations who looked into journalist welfare and our phone call were trying to find a way to help me, to settle down in a foreign country. So at the beginning, it was really tough because my family was meant to join me. They even came later to Senegal, but living in Senegal without any job, it can't sustain no easy. Senegal, we have this principle: what happens in exile stays in exile. Stays in exile,
I know.
What happens in exile?
So journalists ko tangol benu njele. Mo jamal benu refugee ala Gambia.
Yeah, but definitely. Even njele, like Serif Boyan Junior, for example. Ilang alam yung fatila story po niya. Serif Boyan Junior, he was in the UK when his dad passed. So I think it was another now. He landed at the airport like yenyungala NIA straight. Bila wala mala dada funeral keno. Me asinam from Gambia. Na boy wala wala. You know, he's one of the journalists who were like not strong from cold there. When I got there, showed me the way, and then he was very supportive. But ngala tari jele, ngala min fari tari jele. MLJ was there, but I think it was in Irambur or somewhere. Nga journalists jamare tari nunje, maybe are based in Dakar. Dolbije they even Dolbije they are based on working. We have the expatriate community, but we have others merely along go well they were in Senegal because of safety. Dolbije can use as a stepping stone because while you're there, you get a chance to resettle, further. Like others can use it to get to US or to go to other places. Yeah, but it's a process me I'm going to work on. So until I get registered, and I've been going through that process, and interestingly, like I said, I did a lot of work when I was there. I started publishing a blog called the Gambia Beat at the time. After growth because not known for 16,000 followers when I was there. It was very active. Yeah, after also the online media, like Fatu Network. I think at the time when UC was in the US, nka correspondent and in Gainako, Demabalde, because some of the Gambian media were also interested in what's happening around Dakar. So Ninkobe Kerinte can contact the correspondent. But I also write for other international media, about Gambia, and Urmo Jammeh in Gambia. It was difficult for them to access the Gambia directly. So we can walk through us there. So it helps me to stay afloat. Ninda Njekura demanding a paso in Gambia now I have with the kids and now time spent in the car and then they come back because my daughter was going to school. The younger ones were there. So interruption running from going and since life wasn't stable in exile, in the first year I was there and I traveled on to ECOWAS summit in Abuja. It was a trade summit, but through a friend, I think Hassan Salah, who was at the Observer at the time, he had contact for that opportunity. But a passport expired. He couldn't come to Gambia to change the passport, so I had to the guy, young contact where I can travel. Because a passport. So but one of the things I do whenever I travel to this kind of international summit is to try to throw some attention on the Gambia. So when I was Gambia was even more than what I was able to do when I was here.
Wow.
Yeah, because publishing in the newspaper, it will be out there, but talking to the right people, the right authorities, Exiled when I was there. In 2014 at the ECOWAS summit in Abuja, and then in 2015 at Addis Ababa, there was this UN summit on sustainable development goals. They call it financing for development. It was the forerunner before the UN main summit in New York. So where UN member states met in Ghana, and the target was rural development and poverty. So there was, let's say, selected journalists from around Africa were recruited to come there and have a training on rural poverty in agriculture matters because they want to make it central to the SDGs where it was coming after the UNDP from Emilon Development Goals Banta face out that their SDGs were coming. So they wanted to make sure poverty focusing is central to the whole thing. So I was there through the Reuters Foundation. I met about 15 of journalists among us. I was the only Gambian. And then I remember at a press conference, I had a chance to ask Ban Ki-moon after 2 days of negotiation and everything. But even the way I introduced him, tactically, what I'm going to focus to bring on what's happening in the Gambia. Exactly. So when I was outside, I think it was very tremendous. Besides not publishing, but advocacy about Gambia. Then in 2016, in November, in a invite for Nankata at the Hague, at the ICC, it was myself, MK Marena, who later joined me in Dakar. And that I joined in Dakar. I was going to call with Musa Sedikan at the time. Musa Serif of The Voice for some stories they published about MK Marena. I come back times. I think I left in August. MK came in November, something like that. So I find in So now that I knew at the Hague, and then we spent a training session on the sidelines of the ASP, which is more like the General Assembly of the ICC. At the time, Jammeh had filed a formal phone call to withdraw the Gambia from the ICC. So people are interested to hear about the Gambia. That's small country with the biggest, with the loudmouth president. So people are curious to know about Gambia. So during that training, identify that was the Hague City, a town hall meeting created. I think it was a tradition there every year. Now, so Gambia was invited to come and speak about an experience coming at the town hall meeting. How going to find the tape, and I have to talk about my journalism experience. It was 5 minutes, but I think I used 18 minutes because I couldn't just stop at my personal story without talking about what is happening in the Gambia.
Gambia and all of
So
that.
international dunia be along the mong students Gambia dunia ma interest in the local. Why? Because we have no gas, we have no oil, we have no strategic mineral resource in this country. Wala nang kastroku kanyum barame mbekera dunia iteralu na nakuro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so this was a thing. Now, thank you, Jerry. Talk about the Gambia, talk about my life as a journalist, community, and how my experience is connected to everything, every struggle that is going on in my country. But in that town hall meeting, yeah, family no. I mean, cameras were there, everything. You know, yeah, family. I told them that 2016 December 1st, go Gambia is ready for change. Change back calendar. No one believed me. They don't even take me serious because nobody thought and expected Yahya Jammeh was going to lose that election. You know, I don't know, for some reason, Namison was only Gambia. I could have chosen like other journalists, but I came to Dakar 4 days to the election. Election of campaign cover, you know, from Dakar, we facilitate work for journalists, what they call fixer. You know, go and get liquid sources on the ground to do their thing. Then this election, like counting back, and 4 a.m. at night, I confirm Yahya Jammeh has lost the elections.
Wow.
Yeah, because
lafanga lo demento demanding wala mu nying life in exile because jemu ke wulo require for nyaming jebu fenati mi alon ko mo jamalo ma balu, you know, almantankala kulemu bari ga almantankalo fanan lata atol dol kan fal nata bula akaso kono bari lafa ke nyinin ka men comme nibe nalbe je alka mol so le men ka alma koy bang balu wala karola albe luaso kala demento alla lungo lunda ka dula na fancy fa kotengol. Was that something or we katare fon ye jele ye ko kuta ki telem?
Two things be rectify. There are journalism grants me along America apply. You need to be able to apply those grants to international bodies.
Ma ko rolel mu journalist olier.
Ha, abelodin dunia kon taringe. Journalists when problem even na situation siba kono, you can be able to apply for those grants. Yeah, jele me along ko si fande mano. But it is a notice that can sustain you because atakela ko every day minale ko afel, every end of month ko afel. So no grants if it usually should go into your welfare. Yeah, I understand. But notwithstanding that war is never enough. However, we'll enter from a local officer and the demanding compared to our peers. Let's say security forces like the army or the police or other civil service. Senegal. It will go up some. So if you don't have a family there, but local collable back, boy. Yeah, there are other journalists from America. They have been very exemplary. One of them is Sir Boyan Jr. He was at another case, instead of from asylum, another an expatriate because he was one of the leading West African journalists based in Dakar. I turned into an opportunity. You know, he worked very well. So for me, he's one of the most exemplary journalists. In exile. At the beginning, and there was Agnes Tomasi, who is the wife of Palu Tomasi from West African Democracy Radio. There was this girl called Aisha Dabo. We were the independent together. Atefana was there working as an expatriate. You know, Farijan Senghor was related with the media, but mostly on the advocacy side, freedom of expression. So Demba Ali Jao was there working for I think it's a Pan-African news agency or something. There was another news agency working there. Some of the Gambians who are based there, they can go so but until more opportunities if I sort of. Like I also try to do, say for example, on Kawala follow. How do I turn this challenging life into opportunity? So Nasafero and then blogging all the time. An opportunity so that apply. He's somebody who is very active and he has a lot of passion for this work. Manda exile like that. It makes it even harder for you. So when I pushing it.
So akam ko nyomo balde malte mal ka nyo mako sana ninku beje bi ni site ko ma fele sa fo men ko yeme meya ila exile wato kono in Senegal. I know it's a very difficult period, but is there anything that you miss about you know about Senegal basically?
Ila democracy.
Yeah?
Yes. Being in Senegal for now was a good opportunity to get closer to how democracy was evolving. Imagine at the time, Macky Sall was one of the champions of democracy, term limits. So a lot of ECOWAS and other people are using this case as an example. You know, I even remember a referendum on the new constitution when I tell you this story because most of the trainings that I do with journalists in Exile. Well, Fajiri was one of the most independent or critical media in Dakar. They were covering that election on that new referendum on for the new constitution. And then on that day in the morning, I think they've been doing something which is more like campaigning, because on the journalism, on the electoral coverage code of conduct for elections, election day because campaign, no, you can't campaign for anything. Yeah. But they are broadcasting some messages that the authorities found were in violation of the election coverage conduct. Yeah. So authorities will call them to tell them if they continue doing that, they're going to close their media house. On air, well, Fajiri announced go, Masakunda ko be soronale. On this day, Senegal Dakar bele fundita nan. For la bang ikamu mane ne attack kata fe bidun before polls be close la no. So for me, it is quite inspiring. The public has recognized the role of journalists and the role of independent media to the point go. Ni Masakunda will take journalists come. Public fund ka will come journalists will defend. That is one thing I have seen lacking in the Gambia, where young ni ko parme ka fole ko ni dañ bari wax dañ sof ila ko le siata yi damo ka ko bele fo. Nobody shows solidarity with Gambian journalists young. Ka promotion we are on our own. Public solidarity is very limited. But Dakar is the opposite. Moja Senegal is very inspiring. And then also, like I said, ela media freedom the way they exist, being their way allow them to enable them to close it to definitely learn a lot from their democracy and how they are operating. Transition because Ablawada, yes, he came, he did very well. But when he attempted to push for a third term, he stopped it. And Maki came. When Maki came, he was a champion. Everybody, but at some point they had to stop him. You understand? Despite being a champion of democracy, but could be allowed. Yeah. So I think those things are inspiring. When 2016, when Barrow lost, when Jammeh lost, Barrow was coming in. My decision to come home, one of the reasons is that Ngamen Karam Bandala, while I was away, and Ngamen sacrifice, it's an opportunity for us to come and rebuild our country. That's why I was motivated to come home. I could have stayed away like others, but Gambia to be part of the process, not to sit on the sideline have a opportunity. So basically.
Interesting. Sarah, I think that's a very nice way for us to even go into the next phase of the discussion. Karte fo keta falingo keta banko kam ko ya fanyama ube tara nun Senegal. Ngam represent baro ya tul tara nun Senegal le. Wato mena nun Gambia duta nun fo atara si nun Senegal fo ya kalindi. Wato ya tara jela bam fo watara le murta Gambia already.
No, ndala ngaji Senegal. Gambia, the refugee community, we have this solidarity. Ni furana nang. There is always a community party to call you. MK Bilakana na cross tabuda kwenye Bairo, I'm coming there, I'm coming. Kandoge nana.
So, Birimbaro from Aliaji Ayadile as the refugee community.
Okay, one of the vibrant politicians we had at the time was my party, and he was also. Well, my party was there, but I was in exile. He was also there. So my party was there, and because he was very instrumental in the coalition, and then working with Barrow very closely from the Mali Sonko in Senegal, Yes, we did our part, whatever we can do. So, for example, Barola press conference, make a priori press conference, make a organize. Contact to contact my colleagues to tell them no go. You make a statement of release. So, meeting all that. And then even when I remember when they are trying to mobilize Gambians to come and have the Dominican inaugurate, I think the next day, Senegalese government gave us an opportunity, refugee community to have a meeting with the president. Yeah. So you contact my party and call. When you go announce it among your colleagues, go tomorrow at this time. President is meeting all the Gambian community, those that have come as internally displaced persons, because the impasse a lot of people left the country. More than 40,000 Gambians were moved across the way to Dakar, but there are others, they are only at the borders. Displaced. So already there was a humanitarian situation at the borders, and I was but when we were supposed to meet, father tap at I'm sure you remember the hotel, Kim Fahad, a whole lot of father tap, I saw a lot of Gambians, those that some of them bring out an young I had opportunity to work with. Among them was former ambassador Masane Sise, the former CD, is it Masane Kinte, right? Who later became a defense minister,
CDS,
CDS.
yeah.
Yeah, he came in to be a special advisor for the economic mobilization. You know, but among us, there were other military guys. Mela long ko pedal nungo dumo fang Gambia na du tanum fang ha. Olo fang pedal nunde pour kana nan dia ko yade. Yalla ne lo ba ko like I said, nyimbe ko 50 no.
Definitely.
Nyimbe ko 50 no. So ngaparo ji ajele and the day of the film go we came there, we covered the international media, ka press conference attending. We did our best to do whatever we can do. We had a meeting with him and he promised us there'll be a new beginning in the Gambia. So after that day, Osama at the border. At the time I was coming, left cross Canada into Gambia to meet my family. Even though man said about coming after how many years, people I can have an opportunity to come. Economic done that already, Jammeh left. So, but when I go to the border, I'm falling. I'm in the border to. In my life, nene maje. Gambia kata for like. People were sleeping on the street corners. A city fence over jang aya ke kiyam mulunti anal dimbaye ta fe go fene ye lak fita ye laje gampali. It was very pathetic. Pregnant women, old age, muso wuta jele, or during that time, muso wuta at the border. I remember one of them from Atola, I think, Aji Kumbada Fela, because he was one of the volunteers with us. There was also this brother called Ismail Assar, you know. Nte was there, Killer Ace was there, Aliuba was there. No, I mean, some of us were based in Dakar, but we had to come to the border to help because it was a humanitarian situation. These people were there. Senegal's government could not be able to handle that. You know, the resources, disaster, mass movement, the response might be delayed. So in the context of this military intervention meant a lot of people thought there was going to be war in the Gambia. We even had somebody who passed there, you know, on Karan, just after Karan, started to be, you know, so do you have seen a lot. Then from my Holland trip. At the border. One of the first things I did was Jiko, because Senegalese Jiko was a problem. People drinking that Jiko from for a you know, and in Senegal, you have to pay. So people go. It was quite crazy. Then in I just started distributing that amount.
It's crazy.
At the border, helping those that were there before me, helping to provide humanitarian services. You understand? There's problem we are calling us and then sending because we cannot post online so that the situation. People started calling from that they can only mobilize medical supplies sort of because there was a fear that even cholera from outbreaks sort of knowledge because of sanitary issues. Yeah, 3 days mfali manku. Yama eba flang jong tunganku eba memina yo le sort of no. 3 days ngala kemo boyang kila is aluba. I think those are the one like one building na melango baso yo le fene salba konote. Sudo na sida ngankuna da ko dam bana ngini ngana ata men ngana mburo ni fonko domo ni ko do sida ni ngam so ngana mburo sansa la ngalande so nga kombi foni sadi nyo sanka put together with jabo ngada dan ka sandwich mole da so mo ka ko wolte konto nga mo so e men ngonke mobilize to buy mano nga fonko ye ben kini bata be adin you know mfali nga be ko fono so eventually when by the time the new government settled in GPTC also mobilize ke senang to the border kamol murundi back you know I remember the day men na boso be futa o day men na Jammeh fly do guta be takang mvali kumbo kera woli kana wolu nga I wish we were there people kumbo kera kama ni mole fata the tears of joy that Jammeh was leaving the Gambia
nga kilo ya male wende tara nun UK le but nga video le jele online ale kata cool men keje anim fana mole kontano men soto birin Jammeh tada sana lafa nga damen to jibe wala mu birin wo impasse nin ko be botala nga je nyala bangola inata do ko ke State House. How did that come about? Wana take nyadi de?
Okay, State House mo jama camera birin nata do State House employed directly. No. I was working as an independent journalist. Like I said, birin nata nanjang. I came in February on the 16th until Naranjan, 2 days before the independence celebration. Masakunda did very well because they even organized a farewell cocktail for us at the Senegal. So especially the journalists from Senegal, you know, because they knew we were coming, and then because you know there was a special film for us to come an inauguration in the Gambia. So GPU along with some of the film did a special cocktail dinner on the 16th at I think it was an art cafe or something around Senegal area, Okay, on the 16th, on the 17th, and on the 18th, kada Independence Day, Barrow was winning at the Independence Stadium, and then everybody had life has to go back to normal. So when you come in, first thing you want to do is to settle down with your family. See how can you be able to pick your life again. It wasn't easy coming home with nothing and then having a fresh start. However, not journalism, like I said, source of livelihood. I did my best, started attaching myself to the point. Manda standard, for obvious reasons. Now for my boss, when I left the Gambia, ended up becoming Gambia's information minister, which I personally did not appreciate about him. But like I said, his history is so I couldn't go back to the standard. At that point, because then go there, I had a sacrifice before. At that point, to work with them. In fact, point not another press card dinner. State House almost State House was temporarily at Fajara. So it's a weekly or monthly press conference. So I was busy with those stuffs. Will cover and then press conference news cover. Bloomberg News not recruit to be their correspondent in the Gambia. More like a stringer role, but also it has what is called an independent contractor. It means Bloomberg has, because they are business-oriented news, some of the news are not only focused on news coverage dambang, but other kind of work around that. So another active in the young, part-time do okay with the point, contributing stories there, for mainly focusing on the transition, on the political transition. For almost 1 year until end of 2017. And then Bloomberg this is the first time in my journalism career I do go from $100,000 in the Gambia.
Wow.
By 2018. So for me, life was very good. It's a new opportunity and I was doing well. But opportunity sort of OP needs some communication, communication team by the constitute can. The person that was there, they had to let that go and recruit new members. So another opportunity more. At first, you advertised them, I applied, I never applied for it. Mel follow apply, they apply, and I apply, and look independent doctor. But I think one of these instances, one of the people that I work with was called Chilel Elegance. So Boyan say Boyan Junior. So one of our activities, first lady was going to one of these places around Gunjur Mafana. He was going to inaugurate a borehole project there. So Chile and then I did a very good story about her that was published in the newspapers. I understand because first lady Nyola is mostly PR. Some real news, unless it has to do with like the 35,000 Fatu Kodole, except that kind of news, but most of it is about PR.
Yeah.
So after that incident, first lady, I think she working with Chilel Elegance was invited for a meeting. So Chilel Konnaita Nyola at the State House. We went there, we are meeting with the security general Habib Drame. I will not tell you what was the meeting about, but it was really that meeting before the drum. I mean, Boyang na former boss, DPP Ayan Kumala Konya Sana. Bring Karunja, when you go ni food and another page. So when we left, I am commander. When you go, like, when I later money rule apply as press officer. I never thought probably the better didn't do okay. I got going to tell them it's Masakuna do Konya. I understand. Until I've been in independent media and so far I'm doing well. Like I said, I'm already making money on my own. When you go, we are rebuilding this country. But I'm still doing matter. When you go, I applied before. When you go, you shortlist that Public Service Commission. Public Service Commission, we are not satisfied with their profile. When you go, so when you go, you go advertise the. When you go, please apply. You will be a very good addition to our team. Really? Okay, I'll give it my shot. So, after I consulted 1 or 2 persons, including Chilel Elegance, and when you go look, this is our government. You have sacrificed a lot for this change. In you should go. Secondly, it will give a good opportunity for a public service for your experience. So at the time, this was this 3 years transition caring. Okay, let me go because I've been very active covering what's going on. So I apply. I went to an interview. All the questions. But I also remember this. I will want to say this on record. But at the interview with Lanyondom, I mean, was there just only. I think he got invited because it was on her on her unit.
Department.
Bria interview be phone commission members in Yininga and I've answered all their questions satisfactorily. And Yininga, I mean, what do you have to say? Because Sanna say I have a question of Bandana. My only concern about Sanna is he is too much into human rights issues. How is he going to blend that with his role here as a president? Media officer, Naya sort of. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the experiences that I never forgot. I mean, on the other hand, I am proud ko yang identify ko human rights is one of my phone calls. Yeah, it's one of my bits, and I, so ngamera ko ngam fat in human rights sayang wala sort of. So my expect ko bigger problem because unless I have fonyo ko masakunda fana menakala ya je masakunda. Otherwise, that shouldn't be a problem. If we are here to make sure that Kamel fat go wala tamandi. So because that's one igata ko nyinale,
Yeah.
And then I left after a day or two later on. I spoke to you about it once on the phone. After that, because you were already there. Yes. When you opportunity to come, we work together. It's encourage. I remember that. Thank you very much. For that motivation. Yeah. So after that, when you go to area down police PMO, pick your letter. On the 11th, night you receive when you go report that day from. So you have to go end of month. You start. When you that day from report. So now I social media assistant, Sol Touré photographer, Modun Jai, and DPPR Fongo. So that's how I joined that team. That's how it all came about. It was never planned, and man not directly miracle. It was not even political appointment. It was definitely based on merit. I think they're looking for something that I have to contribute to the team, which is my good writing skills, and also my extensive understanding of the governance issues that have been addressed by the new incoming government.
Yeah. Amazing, interesting. Comments maybe pour more media along ko malong ninsane do ko kinyo kanunu State House maybe nung department kilong kono office of the president anti amile na boss nunje.
Ita boss.
Anti amile na boss. It was it was a very good time. For most of us it was our first time kadoko in the public sector. And then we also came at the time me along ko. Jamela time the Department of Press and Public Relations man sort of nung. Hana sort of the phone coming ela doko mo warake. Mostly Jambekala communication in Kujamal Besaman in GRTS. In fact, GRS of Dokula Jama reported will keke ala press officiality at the end. But I wanted to ask you, Prumol meni along ko malong. As press officer, what was day-to-day like for you?
Okay, that's an interesting question, Fali. Yalom president la media team. Na primary focus is on the president Adoko. Like that you are a member to be in charge of presidential engagements, media engagements. You understand. So mostly whenever an president an engagement sort of where media and cover, confirm through the head of department. Schedule publish in the morning. We have an idea cover. But even when president engagement sort of until we are never free, it all on how things have been going. We have always been busy. Yeah, understand. You came up with the draft communication policy for the office. I remember that. I came up with the what they call Zenab drafted the social media policy. I think we all had a draft something from our respective. That's one of the things that
you at the time was the SOP.
SOP, yes. Actually, yes. I saw the book, and then Nabose Tobije, but that's fine. I saw the booklet, Nabose Tobije, Ataya Save. But I mean, it compiled all of the Bella contribution there to making that unit. But for the first time, Valley, a proper and structured unit was created. Where roles and responsibilities were clearly defined. Obviously, challenges because they have a different background. It about broadcast media. You understand, and your studies, your masters was mostly focused on communication policy. Into about newsroom background, and Zenab, I work with Zenab. She's one of my trainees. But they now put together, work with someone like Amibo Yang Melongo, maybe in the Namandogo before, and then all under the big office of the president, where there is the cabinet secretary, there was the secretary general, permanent secretary, 5 permanent secretaries. Sometimes we even have
and the SG.
Sometimes we even play a supportive role for the vice president. So for me, this was quite an enriching experience. We had challenges, yes, but I can understand life if you have any task in life, you might challenge then it will not be that fulfilling. So I
Absolutely.
challenge but notwithstanding the challenges, I think going in there made me a very a better journalist because experience in public sector, understand of president and that's the number one office in the country. Working there for 2 years, 4 months, I exposed to a lot of things. Me along going into the newsroom on all the karano. Ngapang go somebody understand. B, I think I can see I'm one of the few journalists of my career. We have that broader understanding of President Tamandinya, President Office Tamandinya. What can I contribute to President Office to make it more functional, to make it a PR friendly kind of thing co-create? I can be able to give you a lot of ideas. I understand. So I'm gonna obey through experience the hands-on experience that I'm sort of get. Those are things that you don't learn in the classroom. So I think it made me a better journalist today. I can deal with all cadre of society, from the common man on the street to the highest person. And until B, I'm interested. I'm sure you have seen the photos. I'm not a president again, I'm president. You know, because but people whenever they see me and president in a we are laughing together. You know, if you work closely with the guy, you can appreciate now last meeting though, then I want to ask for a photo. So honestly, we are asking for photos with him, but on our table, it might be seen interpreted on the way. But again,
president bukan nyina mola abukan nyina mola hani mo
no
birin tanga
so we laugh about that.
birin ta famo bara no state house min OIC wado ni na benda no project site so the thing isa na bulodi na ko nyeko mfali doko albakang so ikaje my colleagues kan tonye sina mo ko president wa yetelo mol ko le president wa yetelo ngoy ko abukan nyina he's like but Sanna, how was it like working with the president on a daily basis as media officer? Pour mol men yalong koy malong, they don't know how it looks like. Do you see him every day? Katale bang in IST? How is that like?
Okay, Mfali, one of the things that I can tell you, having gone there, if you ask me one of the things that I think could have made that unit more functional and responsive to the president on it, president should be able to have an ability through a media team or anika one-on-one sort of what is going on and how he can be able to make our work easier. You are my immediate senior. You are more or less like the deputy director under the DPPR. But if I'm a president, I see more flow than because is it for him? I'm a but that is one thing that I found lacking in Barrow. I understand. I'm saying this on record because tomorrow Barrow may go another president so that as a country we can learn from that. When they hired all of us, na responsibility is the president. Until their document, we want to make the president look better, how to better project our image out there, and also how to contribute to making that office more responsive to the needs. But in the opportunity, of course, for whatever reason, whatever Ngage, we also go to the DPDR, and how he represented us there. But I'm saying this not out of malice, but out of some positive reflection on what happened there. Okay. Number two. In the president every day. President has other things media engagement. Some of them, in fact, when the president is having an engagement, we have about 1 or 2 minutes to take pictures. You lose that opportunity. Okay, it's a very speedy thing. You go and take your pictures, take your quotaways within a minute or two, and the security bar escort out. Because walking around the president, there are three departments involved: the security, the press, and the protocol. So we have to coordinate every day. You understand?
Nim president wa jama bengolu soto event sol thing ani wo fin sifal mum preparation sifala ka du wokono like how do you determine ko
I mean, let's take an example. There was this particular independent, I think that was my last independence anniversary with the team. Imagine when GRTS and QTV has over transmission and rights and in Indol. And then GRTS was of course natural selection all them. GRTS state broadcaster anywhere in the world. Personal engagement by constitution and ila mandate ni wale ka responsible. All the other private media ka fengkota telebu ka signal telebu kono. Yeah, but when QTV came, they came in very aggressively. I mean, not in a negative way, but the way they want to come and make sure that presence of field. If you know my media, you know his style of business. He wants to come and dominate. So there was several clashes and conflicts in how we even resolve that team. So that it doesn't reflect negatively on the president. So but beside that, because this was a new dispensation, media household besiakan, and everybody want to have an opportunity to be there. So we had to go one application or make application or send now. We had to do a bit of profiling inside to look at this human level assess no. Right now, media house there was a media policy. The intelligence and then the security should help us to screen and know who are coming, because you allow access now. You have access to the president, and near media clearance dealer. That means whatever happens under that phone code is our responsibility. So among the coups working around the president, because of the nature of the job and how sensitive it is. But it was quite very challenging. Not easy, because having all this media. I remember one of the things in internal planning, I have to go into the field with the cameraman. So travel to go and take the videos, look at the preparations and everything, and come back and report a promotional video and all of that. By the way, when I went to OP is where I learned how to do video production. From print background, but because we worked together as a team, everybody was contributing something. That was more challenge because as media officer, I can't just be biased for the print or the online, but for other areas, working with cameramen, working with editors. Now, President's Diary, for example, na first day, 4 a.m. long close. So, alhamdulillah, looking back, alhamdulillah, I think we've done our best to contribute to that office in whatever way we could. But I'm easy. It's not an easy task.
No, I want to come to Black Lima. Remember the relationship with other press. We are wrapping up very soon, I promise. Like journalist kotangol men kana kabula president no makatra ka cover. This is for the benefit of more many alonko. They may not know Kuol Kakenyame. How do you determine journalist Jumala Bina yetara president wala press corps kono? All of that. Wobeka Kenya dire.
Okay, even can I see announce? We have first internal meeting unit meeting and then the DPPR will tell us the scope of what is happening, who is expected to be there. Then you take up the leadership in terms of what needs to be done. So you give me instructions as senior comms officer. You tell me the media officer, Sanna, it in the cameraman because operational wise, the cameraman like a dogo get back. Other journalists. So if you tell me go Sanna, it's up to me for how do I even go in. So you do this supervision at our level, and then cameraman there are about three of them were there. The photographers and videographers all together. Because even when we are going to do things in the field, personal engagement will still have to go on. So sometimes Timoka split left on the ground, they'll be focusing on our daily activities. And working up administration activities for the
By the time you came, Sanna, the weekly press briefing, was it on?
Yes. In fact, I started before I came there. When I came, it was not weekly. I think it was happening a month or so when I came there. But when I at Fajara Kagale almost a weekly or so. But when they went to Banjul, because I joined them when they were in Banjul, 2018 May on another OP. 2018 May I went to OP.
I wanted to have your take because Akakelunung has stopped her. A lot of things like Akakelunung, one of the issues that the DBPR was on record for was journalists will come and nyaming, how some of them would come. I think it was all, in hindsight, it was all part of our evolution as a media. Journalists will gain access to the president, but Jamal Fanang did not know how to, conduct themselves around, presidential decorum and protocol. So yes, that was kind of challenging. I would really want your views on that. Yes.
I think one of the reasons why, not officially or formally contributor, but one of the reasons that I think contributed to stopping that monthly press conference was when one of these journalists, I don't want to tell the name, but came at the press conference and told the president in his face, President, what do you have to say in response to people saying, you are clueless, you know nothing about government? I mean, come on. And Donald Trump neo fire about when you are very terrible journalist.
Yes.
and the president lost it. I mean, he went around rumbling about it. It was quite embarrassing, you know. So after that, I can't tell you I stopped telling, but it was no longer. I'm so you and me know how much we push prayer continue, no, but up there, it was no longer tenable for us to do that. But I've got easy. For example, I remember one of Indian Prime Minister visit at the airport. I mean, despite all the protocols, president media team access to the president. Not every media so media demarcate nyame. For example, ngalong ko JRS cameraman ni status cameraman nyanta katare boxo menkono. Or how close they can be to the president. Media will be able to president normal like that, especially when he is doing the quarter guard. You understand? Or he is greeting the president. Because that president security on the ground security right. So there is everything is controlled. So I remember this journalist from one of the TVs, not over. A lot of president who was saying, "Nasa asem be kidding." Prakat he slipped out from the box area mendo. Adara jana you know. When I call on Dada no majanga bro mudanga sabana ngafundi nijele in front of all the cameras. I don't care. I mean, because when you stay there, security will hold Sanna responsible.
Yes. No, we ngatara presa bale fa ko fa. Isa fa mo le yalla mo jele ko nyilat ndam bu kala fa lisudi.
I got a blame. For example, I remember Sankare calling me after that. That wasn't nice. I remember tomorrow you go back to the public. So very careful in this studio. I'm trying to avoid a situation where it will be chaotic. And say I have failed in my duty to maintain decorum around that process. He did it on purpose because I don't know this is not his first time. I don't know this is how he operates. Know during that phone call, the president team is always there to share footage with you. So for you deliberately taking that phone call, it was something that I couldn't go, like I couldn't just let go. So okay, I can get several times. I remember when I was at Medno University, when I left up in that university to do my bachelor's program there. One day I'm putting a friend, I taxi man break. In the taxi, this guy was like, ngabe kada mendole pour ngat passo vonja ay tan ngago bro sera ko nyon despaso traité ngabe la ko nyon vraiment de gane ako nyon dana stéras ko be duna programme bloje ko be tambile ko de tambila you know it ya batale you know billahi I was so embarrassed you know. Ngago no guy bro
yes yalong mol bu ka ñun leluje but the coverage the media operation around the presidency you know jata juniorolem you know it's a big negotiation between protocol security. You also have to manage the other pressmen kananang. You know, it's an interesting dynamic. You know, but you know, it was a come nyaming nyayele kule mu mtolu jamalie. It was you know a good life experience. But Sanna, I want us to move on, given that we are limited by time. Quickly, ni ye jam media jibe bankola kibata ni kibajan jambunda. President Koto Jambela Maralo Koto and Impreza Adama Barola Bitilo. What is your assessment, Itala Miroto, you know, in terms of both media la quality be nyaming and infanang, you know, environment on yimbe. Ngalani ifaratale manke clean, but I'm interested in your views.
So I happen to be one of the experts, Gambia la questionnaire field in terms of media press freedom index every year. Maybe a lot of people didn't know that. Name new interview I wouldn't have told you this. But the dynamics fall into number one. Okay, not only the political dynamics, but also even the press freedom dynamics. All the time I insist on the yardsticks or the standards we use to assess press freedom on the Jammeh and what we can use today are different labaka. Quite simply, executions taking, there are no arson attacks, there have not been indiscriminate arrests or taking and any thing. So the environment has quite improved. All the time bring them on board. I make this kind of input into our phone call. However, the other issues saying are more legislative and reform issues. They should be very favorable to the media. For example, honeybee in our media book, in our law books, there are still laws. It was recommended but government. One of them is the Newspaper Registration Act. The Newspaper Registration Act, I think when on the Jammeh, first it was free. I think by 1994, and I some of $500 or something when Jammeh came. From $500 to $5,000, $5,000 to $50,000, from $50,000 to $100,000. By the time Jammeh be gigang from office, to register a newspaper in the country, you need to have a bond, a collateral of $500,000 in the bank that you can submit as a phone call, or you need to have a landed property that has that value. It's that document to submit no. Why do you think that bring media to an MBTM, there are no new newspapers besides the traditional ones that have been there on the Jammeh? That's one of the reasons.
Right.
I think that is this policy. Colonial days, it requires a news media radio station have to renew their license every 2 or 3 years.
3 years.
Okay, every 2 or 3 years. Number one. Number two, on top of that, Kakoko media household operational function about the ministry dambale bulu, and maybe Pura was only supposed to be doing frequency allocation. I think these are all outdated methods of media or media administer in a country like this. It was recommended, even the TRC if I recommend the Kwanyanda Falina. There are other laws, even operational wise. Gambia Press Union, until we are a body of media professionals. It's as a trade union function, but also is a body of Mealongo. It's not only trade union, but Atelier is the voice of the entire media community here. Until Nasembo do Atelier, in other sense. Why? Because of the onslaught that the GPU endured on the Jammeh. We didn't change an MBTM. Media kono keba maybe Jamansia anymore. They don't understand the history. They don't understand the capacity in terms of our knowledge, in terms of our training, is quite limited. So what is affecting both our relation with the government, but also on the fund as a community? I mean,
the quality of journalism.
I have dropped it seriously. I have dropped it seriously. People now, alhamdulillah, today there are 2 or more than 3 journalism schools in the country. Not journalism school, but there are other institutions that are also doing journalism-related courses. But School of Journalism and Digital Media at the University of the Gambia is there every year. Aka fresh budget. 17 graduates graduated with a BSc in journalism. Remember that on last week. Majak, which is GPU professional training school, the school that we started, you know, as the first one, where I also worked as a trainer and also as a training coordinator. Overall, they are running programs at different levels, from certificate to diploma and advanced diploma. They are also doing other courses related to media and communications. So nobody can have an excuse to have, I don't have an avenue to train myself. However, but standardization is another problem because Mokara University they graduate with a BSc, you're not newsroom motto. When it comes to even practice, it's a big problem. Substantively, it is still inadequate.
That's serious. But there's something menkante border sana, and I really am interested in your view on this. Coming in other places, near America, GB, UK, in black cotton, eka journalist will jele katala fo bora koi. Ibes jela teleto ibe jela sefero lebe mo radio. Bari Gambia ntolula journalist olu buka kamali do ko kono de. Nimmo mo ya dati domandin drong.
Ako mo editor and chief lady. Mo media chief lady. I tell them, I still proudly call myself a reporter. Most of the media house, in 2017, not joke media house member, editors in chief. But in terms of experience, I am more experienced than. I wouldn't say I'm more competent than them, but in terms of experience and my length of service, media.
Yeah.
I understand. So that's not a problem. For me, that's not a problem because I'm happy that go. As a reporter. But how many media from editor from either from the mainstream media to even this online media and what kind of conventional media. Editor when in terms of their length of service, in terms of their competence and their training, well, 100 reporter but problem GPU has been trying efforts. One of them is school. Number one. Number two, when it comes to operation, it can accredit because accredit in the sense that GPU la press card, everybody's obligated to have it. But when it comes to media household operations, GPU buka any role play water. Masakunda license issue to media houses. But in their operations, in their practice, when they violate their ethics, Masakunda will say, "Go, GPU is not doing anything about this, about that." Most of the media houses, they're not even members of the GPU. Media houses need their own different from the GPU. They are affiliated, but they are not answerable to the GPU.
So what is your view on this regulation that the ministry lafakamen samanano me chocho warandi
no, I think it started in a bad faith. To be honest, I think it started in a bad faith because the America reform process men commencé from 2017. Ninyi sifa bekela masakunda nyanda munekela flow nyanda media GPU is the first body nyanda me engage la so that you can understand GPU la changes mobility. Like this that I'm telling you right now, I'm not sure either they know it or by ignore can. Again, because Nimasakunda I understand these are the gaps in trying to regulate the media. GPU is limited because GPU doesn't enforce the law. We don't issue media houses license. Until Mavo Masakunda Nyantaka license the QTV la every cell to operate their own media houses. Until Mavo. We never said that government should be able to government should give license to N24 media to Star TV. Me I don't go the public the owner of Star TV. When I would for example, I'm just saying for example, not that I have anything against this media. Or Mankajan Daily, for example. I'm not having anything against him. Or this other guy called 360. Some of them are influencers. They are not even journalists, but they're influencers. But they have license to operate as media houses. It was not the GPU that gave them a license. So government GPU approach, understand there's a media council that has been existing. In 2017, one of the things we did was to set up a media council. Media council right now, it has capacity issues. Among resources, among capacity finance, come from Mantarabulu. So they can only make recommendations. May I go? Nadia de media house or yata, Nadia de Kata. Nimasa Kwanata can end with a good faith. Council independent in the sense, give you the media council. But it was in our interest one I tried to initiate that thing, more identify creating a house even in the GPU. You understand? So Nimasa Kwanata, that media council could have been the one even Yala mandate expand. Accreditation of GPU can make and GPU can work together. It can let's take our Masa Kunda. You understand? So that let it be in a good faith. But let us not be just to score political points. Many years ago, this radio station contain. I know this. Well, around 2020, 21 also. I know this was coming. Because right now, every day on ALM. No, so because when you are aware of certain things, you can engage at police level, you can engage at diplomatic level, you can engage at government. Then a deal in a very constructive way. Nim private sector deal in a constructive way. Nim civil society deal there. So I'm dealing with this country. I understood issues in a way me along go. Ngana go ni masakuna para kanyenge in a good faith. They would have taken a different route. So in this this is of interest. Instead, it is being done to contain and control and regulate the media.
I know.
You have a grant that you want to give to the media. Last time, you have 40 to 50 million Gambia media household. You select those that you want to give it to. In the first place, is a constitutional violation. In the Supreme Court, they don't have no right to do that. You cannot come and select one media. You want to come in a second round, and now because you had $1 already, $1 million, $5 million. This poor media environment, you can't want to go. We are coming again. Now you want to give it to other media houses. Then you are telling everybody to start dancing to your tune in order for them to qualify to get that media. When the Constitution actually said that media, state media BGLA, independent media BGLA, private media BGLA, and they also enjoy certain level of privileges in the country, in their operations. No, I mean, what is that reminding us about? On the Jammeh, GRDS was the most powerful private media. Why? Because politicians only blow back on. Ahmad Sama was the face there, of course, but I don't know. Jammeh on camera, ako na yala camera bondi GRDS bulu. News ta fundila.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So the reform started, even the GRTS, a transition to become a public broadcaster instead of a state broadcaster. Yeah, abandon it. They abandon it. So I think it raises a lot of questions in terms of Masakundala genuineness to properly regulate the media. Because reform like Maza abandon it. So you don't just come out of the blue. Because what can Pura do? What can they do? How will they go about it? It's not like they go buy a media I register. The team member media, I've worked with them, I've engaged them. that is a technical clean so the technical clean so me along could help them to recognize frequency me allocate la jangani nyana. But beside that, emu media knowledge so back in la no, media regulation enforcement. How can they do that?
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
But no, lafta fulala ala tentu minister last time nga na program I think it was about 2 weeks ago. It looks like apparently silam puru aning GPUSC ye diamu ye nyomo ye ka jibe you know I think afana ya sude la sainko ate kukeno la GPU koma kiba jenja bunda molu ul fanande puru fana ya do ko ke without any mansa kundala nyomo yo abe kole ala bakele. But Sanna, thank you very much indeed. You know, ye nya fanundi ye nya yelendi kuje mala membe ki kan wara menketan kiba jenja ngoni kibata bunda to gambe banko kam kole yalu moli men taki simfalu men yalon ko ngawle tama as a sector fom futata benyum bitilo mendo. I think nying abe kumala len kam molu kilo blending na malam for GPU la curriculum kono bang. You know, you guys look at the evolution of the media, the history, because model beje many along ko dunta kol kono bilela wado dol beje they will not appreciate the sacrifices kole amen lata molukang ko jannimbe futala jang andu nimo kole ya sude dron tumando bato inyanta ka doko tani wakilo menna tumando bato woldol se mankinole. Even for the minister, I think if the minister fully understood what we went through, you know, he would not have attempted to, you know, want to come to bring in things that will kind of restrict or prohibit the work of the media. But thank you very much indeed, Sanna. You know, I will leave the last words to you, Kuman Labangolu, Waseken Saratode.
No, you go mom, Dembajang. No, yeah, y'all once a boss is always a boss. So they you know. Like, I'm really honored to be here. I'm really honored to be here. Like when I'm OP, media jamare yang often be yang command the interview to talk about issues, but I'm always selective because then that afraid to go at that level. You have gone beyond ordinary now. You have been exposed to certain things along. It's not like in to talk about that office much. But I think doing this discussion in good faith is a good thing for us, and it's for the good faith for the public to understand. And also, even Masakonda, if they watch DPVR, you know, now boss, you are still my boss, DPVR. So by the way, if you watch this interview, you know, we are saying these things in good faith because Banco come and learn, reflecting on what has happened and how we can be able to make that office more functional. And then I'm happy that you are still working with a new team. And every time I dinner, so I can invite me, it's nice. I mean, Chef Boyan is a good cook, so thank you very much for those invitations. Yes, Gambia Muntalet. Gambia Muntalet, more than Bilamole, from Lessa Builder. And we're not going to pass that responsibility to our children. That will make us cowards. So until I build, I better ala enjoy. But until I go responsibilities, I didn't do cowardice, you know. So for me, I'm all for rebuilding this country to make it better than when I became a journalist.
Absolutely. Mbadingolu kumakang njinyata Sanna Camara sana konga finyameng journalist ke balem sanyi mo nimfeng awo ke journalist yala le gambe banko kang natele be kacha nung sana ngeje ngetentu ngalamoy la njibe la jay ngetentu men ben jibe ka YouTube nim Facebook ngal beje ngal tentu. A lot of them stayed with us throughout the program. You know, most of the young Gambian in Spain, ako greetings from Spain, Sana Abe Kontona. You know, of course, Serif Sedi Baro Fanang has been watching and Afanamberi Atkanum. Most of the young Menko Umulamin Fati, Ringamera Wayelone, Ako, hi, I miss you, how are you? You know, thank you for the good work that you're doing. Ngamo jamal so remene alon ko be jibe Musa Dam Fado fanam ben jibe ka ako inimbara our able veteran journalist ba Sanna Camara. So thank you very much atol men be ben jibe kam albe bulakan no ma YouTube nim Facebook ngal be je ngal tentu alala mo kunyi makang alal badi malom mfalli fadera Vibes FM albe moy ka wolto radio to Gambe banko kan APS International wolel bulo ben na Bitilo kibaro koma ala baraka ala matilo to diara.
You're listening to Bitilo with Mfali Fadera.